Hello and what's up, GSC Pokemon Challenges fam? We are back with episode 13 of the Jasmine Minimum Battles series. We are nearly to the end of this section, and we've already gotten 91 Pokemon through all of the first 7 gyms in Johto. With no shenanigans needed, we can simply beat all 7 of these gym leaders. It's proven to be a lot easier up to this point than I actually expected, especially after the Falkner and Bugsy sections were kind of tough. Everything since then has been pretty smooth sailing. But today we've got to get in with a lot of challengers that might actually have some difficulties here. I'm honestly not sure. We're coming in with 13 Pokemon. That includes Eevee and all of its evolutions. We actually have 2 of the evolutions up there in the member picks section, so we'll be getting those ones out in this episode. On top of that, we've got Porygon and Porygon 2, Octillery, which means that Remoraid from the member picks is going to get in on the action, Mantine, Skarmory, Houndour and Houndoom. We've got Donphan, which means Phanpy is going to come in from member picks, and we've got Stantler to round out today's Pokemon. And I'm honestly a little bit nervous about some of these. Eevee, I don't think gets a great moveset, so it might actually be finished here. And I'm actually worried about some of the evolutions themselves. Like, what do Espeon and Umbreon learn that are going to be good for Jasmine? That could be tough. We could also see some other Pokemon just kind of hit a wall here if they don't get the right moves, so I'm going to be really interested to see how many of these Pokemon actually get through, but I could predict that maybe 1 or 2 Pokemon could fail today, increasing the total Pokemon in that fail column. We'll just have to see, but for now, let's get into the action, starting with Eevee, and just see how it goes in this section. Now, Eevee comes in knowing Hidden Power, Headbutt, Swift, and Mud Slap. Now, that Hidden Power is, of course, Hidden Power Dark because it's a max DV's Pokemon. All of these Pokemon are in this challenge. And when we look at the TM Learn set, yes, we can learn things like Detect, we could learn Shadow Ball, we can learn Iron Tail, but of course that doesn't come in until after we have beaten Jasmine. And there's just not really a move that sticks out as like, oh, this is going to be really good to get through the Steel type gym. I think normally what you would have to do is come in with some sort of like hidden power move that would be super effective and special so that you could use it against that Steelix. I think that's the only way that you would get through, but I don't know. We'll just test this out and see. But this could be our first Pokemon that actually fails today. Now, usually I save the unevolved forms until after the evolved forms are done, but in the case of Eevee, it doesn't really make sense since the type changes every time that it evolves into a different Pokemon, whereas Eevee is the pure normal type. So I'm going to run Eevee first, and then we'll worry about all of the other evolutions, but this one might actually be impossible. Let's get into this and find out, though. We're going to make our way first to the Rocket Hideout because it's not like we want to go down to Chucky Boy's gym either with this Pokemon, and we're just going to have to see if we can find a way through. Now, we do at least have Mud Slap for things like Magnemites, but we can see even these level 20 Magnemites are going to be 2-hit KOs at this point, so without more levels or critical hits like that, we might struggle just to even get to the Steelix on Jasmine's team. Still, we can get through Jed here in the Rocket Hideout, and that means that we can move on in this section, gaining some levels before we have to go try our hand at any of the gym leaders. And of course, we get to the end of the Rocket Hideout just fine with Headbutt strats after that, and that means that Eevee has a pretty decent chance of getting through here. We lead off against the Arbok, where I'm just going to Headbutt it. This looks to be a 2-hit KO, so we get through nice and easy. Gloom comes out next. We'll just stick with the Headbutt. We get Sleep Powdered, which is kind of bad, but if we can wake up, we should be able to knock this Pokemon out in just another hit. It seems like the sleep is lasting a long time, so we're down to half health, but we do get through and get to level 30 here. We could learn Bite. It honestly might be better than the Hidden Power Dark because of the chance to flinch. I'm honestly not sure, but I think that's the way I'm going to go. I'm going to throw Bite on over Hidden Power because honestly, I just don't expect that we would ever really be one-hit KOing anything with our Hidden Power. So I think that's going to be better to have the Bite, especially if we can somehow get through this section and get to like Will later on. That might actually help us. Here against the Murkrow, we're just going to get an easy 2-hit KO with the Headbutts, and just like that, we have gotten through the Rocket Hideout. So with that, we'll just help Lancey Boy take care of these electrodes, and let's make our way to Pryce, since he's the least scary of the gym leaders here, and just see if we can manage to at least get through that one without too much difficulty. So Pryce, attempt number 1. Let's just see how it goes. Now Pryce leads off with the seal, of course. We'll go for the headbutt, and this appears to be a 2-hit KO as we just get an Icy Wind. That's perfectly fine, but the Icy Wind does mean we are slower than the next 2 Pokemon, so no flinches here after that. So we might need a run where we don't get the Icy Wind speed drop because we're just barely not getting through the dugong, and the chance to get flinches would really help there. So let's try this one again, and I think I'm just going to reset when I get the speed drop from Icy Wind, so this might just take a few attempts in order to actually get this one to go. This time we get a critical hit on the seal, so we knock it out in a single hit. That brings us to the dugong now, where we can actually outspeed, and we flinch it turn 1. It hits Aurora Beam turn 2, but we get a 3-hit KO on that Pokemon. Piloswine comes out next. We are faster. We get a nice critical hit turn 1 as it just goes missed. Then we deal pretty decent damage as it hits a Blizzard. Now he Hyper Potions. We're going to need a flinch or 2, or at least some misses. We just don't get it on that attempt. We do manage to get back to the Piloswine a couple of attempts later at least, so once again he goes missed, which I'm not sure why exactly that's his strategy, but hey, whatever works. And then we get Blizzard down yet again. This time we get a critical hit on Dugong, which results in it going rest. We still get an Aurora Beam when it wakes up, but we did manage to knock that Pokemon out yet again. Back to the Piloswine, it goes Fury Attack this time. A Blizzard will knock me out from this range, but we get a nice flinch there, then a Blizzard miss. We're just not quite getting the range to knock this one out though. We stick with the headbutt. It gets another Blizzard miss, so we finally get through Pryce, but it took 8 attempts to get through him. And that is the true measure of a Pokemon that's going to struggle. Anything that takes multiple attempts to get through Pryce, you're kind of looking at it as a suspect Pokemon in this section of the game. Still, we have managed to get through, so I guess the best play now is to go down to Chucky Boy's gym and try to take on the randos. And let's see if we can get a Chuck hunt. But after that, we're probably going to be in really bad shape against Jasmine, and I'm not sure if this Pokemon's actually going to progress or not. Still, as long as we can manage some like flinch strats or something here, we should at least have a chance to get through the next gym at least. First, we've got to take on the Black Belt Bros though, so let's just see how they go. We are faster than the Hitmonlee, so we can get possibly a flinch here. It's going to be a 2-hitter. We take a jump kick that did massive damage, but we do manage to get through that Pokemon at least. Let's see how we do against the Hitmonchan. Here against Hitmonchan, once again, we're faster. We do about half. It goes for the Thunder Punch, and that was not enough to stop our Eevee from getting through. So Eevee is going to get a chance to beat up on some randos here. We'll be faster than basically everything from this point on in this gym until we get to Chucky Boy himself. So just like that, we are ready to go try our hand at the gym leader. There were no resets inside of Chuck's gym, which is kind of nuts given that we're a unevolved normal type Pokemon. But now we have to see if we can beat the gym leader himself with the flinch strats. I think we need to put on the Mint Berry just to be safe. And let's hope that this turns out to be enough. So Chucky Boy, attempt number 1 against the Primeape. We are 1 point in speed faster thanks to being on max DVs. That's incredible. We get the flinch, and that is a 2-hit KO. Poliwrath comes out next. We were always going to outspeed this Pokemon, but now we need those Dynamic Punch misses. It hits the Dynamic Punch on the second attempt, and we lose. So we're going to have to try this one again, and this could take a few resets. Next attempt, we get a nice flinch turn 1, but again, a Dynamic Punch. And even at full health, we're just getting one shot here by Chuck. So we might need to go for some Mud Slap strats to try to reduce the accuracy of that move. So I'm going to at least try that. It's not obviously going to deal much damage, but that's not the point. We're just trying to get misses in between our flinches. Here we get a nice flinch on the Poliwrath, so we do manage to get through on the third attempt, getting to level 33, but now we're up to 9 resets so far in this section of the game, just trying to get through Pryce and Chuck, and Jasmine is waiting in front of us. We might have to drop all the rare candies here just to even have a shot. Still, I'm going to go in as I am first and just see how much damage we do with like Mud Slap here. Maybe Headbutt flinches can do something, and we might even need to test out things like our Bite just to see if it somehow does more damage in spite of being resisted on the basis that it's special rather than physical. So Jasmine, attempt number 1 right here. She leads off with the Magnemite. Let's go for the Mud Slap. That did about half. We get a Thunder Wave miss, so that's perfectly fine as we get through that Pokemon. Magnemite number 2 comes out. We need another Thunder Wave miss. It actually goes Thunderbolt here. So we do knock that one out, but now we've got to deal with the Steelix. And I think the only way we get through is by setting up all of the Mud Slaps here first to get its accuracy as low as possible, because an Iron Tail just completely destroys my Eevee. Let's try this one again though. Maybe we can get better luck here by getting there with no damage. And that might be what we need to actually get through this. This time we do get misses from both of the Magnemites, so we're to the Steelix on full health. And now I'm just going to set up all of the accuracy drops. We can see that we took 60 damage from an Iron Tail and we got a defense drop, so the next hit will destroy us. Even a Goldberry wouldn't help us that much there because we would still be in a 2-hit KO range, I believe. So we're just going to have to hope for some better luck than that as we go through. Now, we have seen some Pokemon manage to set up like all of the Mud Slaps here and then manage to, somehow just whittle this Pokemon down. So we'll just have to see. Let's see what different moves do now that we've set up 6 accuracy drops. First is Bite, which does basically nothing. Then Headbutt also does basically nothing, but we can get flinches with these 2 moves. So it's just a question of which is better. Headbutt's probably better on the basis that it is same type, but is only doing 7 damage here. And once we get hit by the Iron Tail, we get completely wrecked. So I don't think this one is possible at our current level. I think we're going to have to start dropping some rare candies. Now, before I do that, though, I will at least throw on Return just so that we can see what the max power Return does here, since it is our strongest same type move on this Pokemon. So we get back to Steelix on this one, and I'm just going to test the Return to see how much damage it does. And we can see that did 10 damage. So this would be an 11-hit KO with the max power Return at our current level with this Eevee. And I just don't see a way that we're going to get those 11 hits off very often. But we'll just have to test it after the rare candies, because maybe that will allow us to get through. So here I'm going to start by getting the level 35 by dropping 2 rare candies. I don't think it's going to make a massive difference, but let's just see what that does to the ranges. So now when we get to the Steelix, we'll stick with the basic strategy, which is to use all of the Mud Slaps here. We can see that we're still getting 2-hit KO'd, so this is going to be very luck based, but I'm going to test it out fully just to see if we can manage to get a better range on that Pokemon. So here, after we get all of the Mud Slaps on, we've got the Steelix just slightly above half health here at 57 HP. We go for Return, and now it does 11 damage at level 35, meaning that this would be a 10-hit KO rather than an 11-hit KO, but you're still probably going down just due to the fact that accuracy isn't actually that OP here. So I think we have to go even harder on rare candies. We could learn Baton Pass at this level, but we'll skip that move. And now we've gotten to level 38, which is the next damage rounding threshold. We've got one more rare candy in the bag. We'll see if we're going to be able to use it or not. But for now, let's just see if this makes any difference on Jasmine. At this level, the Magnemites are still 2-hit KOs, so you're trying to dodge at least 1 Thunder Wave in addition to the Paralyzed Cure Berry. So even that is pretty random right here. Still, if we can manage to get that luck, we should be able to get back to the Steelix and test out how we do at this higher level. But we might be doing something like 12 damage now rather than 11. We'll just have to see. So the biggest change here is that the first Iron Tail takes us just slightly below half health. So if we could manage to get through to the Steelix without getting paralyzed, we might be able to throw on something like a Goldberry and be at high enough health that we could actually survive 2 hits from that Iron Tail here. And at this point, we can see that Return is doing just slightly more. It's still not great, but maybe that's the way to go. Now, I think this is only a possible strategy because of the fact that we at least already have a 25% chance to get the miss from Thunder Wave. And when you add on the Mud Slap, it's even higher than that. But still, the odds of getting 2 misses in a row aren't like great by any means. You're going to mostly be stuck resetting here. This time we do manage to get to the Steelix with no status though, so let's see if we can manage to set up enough Mud Slaps to actually get through this. We do get a heal with the Goldberry there, so the problem is that we also had a defense drop, which meant that the next hit simply knocked us out. So we're essentially banking here on no defense drop and no paralysis from these 2 Magnemites. which is pretty luck-based in and of itself. We do manage to get back to Steelix again here, where we can once again start setting up the Mud Slaps. We're getting insanely good luck on this one, but this time we end up with slightly more than half health when it does finally hit. So we actually survived 2 hits there without the Gold Berry. It's probably a range, but hey, that's what it's gonna be. Now we just have to hope that we can somehow manage to get through with our remaining HP, because the next hit will knock us out no matter what. So let's use Return, which does 13 damage at this point. So it's definitely stronger than it was before, but we're still not dealing a lot of damage. We need a bunch of misses in a row here, and we're just hoping that that lowered accuracy can get the job done. We get a nice critical hit there, so we finally get through Jasmine. Are you kidding me? Oh, that took forever. We ended up with 40 resets there, getting through the 3 gym leaders. Eevee gets to move on, but it's already burned almost all of its rare candies. We have 1 left in the bag. We will get 1 more after we can use Waterfall outside of battle, and that is it. This Pokemon's not going to get any more rare candies for the league, so we're going to have to see if we can get through Claire. Maybe our Return is enough for that, and then when we get to the league, like, what are we going to do against opponents like Fortress, like Bruno's Onyx? What are we going to do against Lance if we ever do get there? I don't think we have enough moves to actually get that far with this Pokemon, but hey, it technically gets through this section. I'm just nervous if it's actually going to be able to keep going on. But with that done, let's get into our evolved forms of this, and I think the first one should be Vaporeon. Is probably the easiest, so let's just test it out. So here with Vaporeon, we are running Surf, Tail Whip, Headbutt, and Mud Slap, but I think we're going to have a much easier time getting through this section as a water type with that Stab Surf. It should give us what we need against Jasmine. Chuck doesn't have any type advantages on us, and we actually resist Pryce's stab moves. So this one should be significantly easier. I'm actually going to try to go down to Chuck first, just to see if I can manage to get through with the Headbutt strats. The most important thing to remember about these evolved forms of Eevee is that they do not get a same type attack bonus in the move Headbutt, and it will be the same with things like Return. So theoretically, their attacks could be weaker than Eevee's in spite of the fact that they're evolved forms, just because they don't get same type attack bonuses in some of the moves. So that's what's going to be really interesting to see here, but I'm just going to come into Chucky Boy's gym with Vaporeon. Let's see how this goes with the Headbutt on this Hitmonlee. I think Headbutt's still the best way to go because of its lower defense than special defense, but I'm not actually sure. Surf might actually be the stronger move. Let's see what Surf does here. It does about half, and that I think is good enough to just go for Surf to knock that Pokemon out. That brings out the Hitmonchan. We'll stick with the Surf strat here, doing about half. It just fire punches. Good job. And that allows us to get through. And now we should be able to beat up on the rest of these traders in here and try our hand at Chucky Boy. Now, of course, Vaporeon has a pretty big advantage on the other evolutions in that it has really high HP and pretty good defensive stats. So it should be pretty decent to get through here, but let's just see if that turns out to actually be the case. Sure enough, we get to Chucky Boy with no issues, and we're ready to take him on, hoping that Surf is enough for the Primeape, and then we can headbutt down the Poliwrath. So Chucky Boy, attempt number 1 right here. Let's go Surf on this Primeape. We get a critical hit one-shot there, so that's very nice. I'm actually going to give a Tail Whip to the Poliwrath first. Now we'll go for the Headbutt, getting the flinch. We can see this looks like it's going to be a 4-hit KO. We get a Hypnosis Miss, then Dynamic Punch hits, but we move, so we managed to knock him out on the first attempt. Chuck turns out to really not be a factor for this Vaporeon, and with that we can get access to Fly, and we'll have more efficient routing through this part of the game. And I just want to see if we can actually beat Jasmine at this point, because if we can, I think we're just smooth sailing from here with our Vaporeon. So Jasmine, attempt number 1 right here. Let's go for Surf on the first of these Magnemites, and that does get the 1-hit KO, getting us to level 30. We can learn Bite by a level up, which I guess I'll put on over Tail Whip. Let's just see if that works or not. I'm not sure if it's actually the correct play. We may even end up forgetting that move. But for now, we'll just stick with Surf on the second Magnemite, getting an easy victory. Steelix comes out, we go for Surf, and we get the 1-hit KO. So Jasmine is a complete non-factor for for our Vaporeon, and we're ready to move on now to Pryce. And I think this might be the best performance we're going to see from any of the evolutions today, but we'll just have to find out. And of course, we destroy the rocket hideout. We can get to the final executive right here, where we're just going to stick with Surf on the Arbok, and this is going to be a one-hit KO, so that's perfectly fine. Gloom comes out next. Let's go for the headbutt. Looks like this is going to be a 2 or 3 hitter. Still, we get through just fine on that Pokemon. As we get to level 33, that brings out the Murkrow, which we just go Surf and get the one-hit KO on. So really no issues there as we get through the rocket hideout. It's on to Pryce, who I think we just headbutt down and we're probably good to go. So here against Pryce, he's going to lead off with the Seal, of course. Let's just go for the headbutt right here, doing about half. We do not get a speed drop from Icy Wind, so we just get to 2-hit KO that Pokemon, and we're still faster than everything. The Dugong comes out second. We'll just stick with the headbutt strats. It looks like a 4-hitter here. We're just hoping it doesn't rest. Sure enough, it doesn't, so we get through to the Piloswine. Let's go Surf, and that is going to be a 1-hitter, getting us to level 34, and just like that, Pryce was a complete non-factor. So unlike the Eevee, Vaporeon just completely destroys this entire section of the game, and with that, we're ready to move on. Let's go check in on Espeon now, who has some advantages, for example against Chuck, but might be really terrible against Jasmine. We'll just have to see. So Espeon comes in knowing Confusion, Tail Whip, Headbutt, and Mud Slap, and I think we start off the same as the last one by going down to Chucky Boy's gym, just because we do at least have the Stab Confusion that should be super effective down there. Now, the big thing about this Espeon is that it specializes in speed and special attack, with defense being its lowest stat, so that could really make things tough when we get to Jasmine. We're just gonna have to see. It also looks like we did not do the Lighthouse previously with this Pokemon, which kind of makes sense. We had super effective same type move to use against Morty, so there wasn't really a reason. But here, I think we're going to need these extra levels before we can actually get through things, so let's just test this out. So here against the Black Belt Bros in Chuck's gym, let's lead off with Confusion on the Hitmonlee. This is going to be a 2-hitter, and we resist Jump Kick, so it was no issue getting through that first Pokemon. Let's see how we do against the Hitmonchan next. We go for the Confusion, we get Fire Punched, which is also a joke, and we easily get through with no difficulty. So with that, I think we're going to get through all of the black belts in here. Let's make our way to Chucky Boy himself. And sure enough, after the Hitmonlee and Hitmonchan, we just one-hit KO everything with Confusion, and now it's time to take on Chuck. I think we just throw on a Mint Berry here. That should be all that we need to get through this one, but let's find out. First up, we've got the Primeape, where we just go for the Confusion and get a critical hit, one-hit KO. Poliwrath comes out next, so let's stick with Confusion, doing about half. It goes for Surf, which didn't do nearly enough, so we get a very easy first attempt victory. So with that being done, let's now make our way out of here. Let's get access to Fly. But now I think the next best play is to go to the Rocket Hideout with this Pokemon, because we should be able to beat a lot of the Team Rocket members just by using Confusion and gain some additional levels before we have to take on anything else. Plus, we've got a pretty bad matchup against Jasmine, so I think this is the correct way to go. And sure enough, Espeon gets through this whole section with no issues. We've made it to the final executive, where we just have to see how this goes. Against the Arbok, obviously, it's going to be pretty easy. We just go for Confusion. I did not heal coming into this, though, so Murkrow comes out next, and it does have a super effective move here with Pursuit. Let's go for the Headbutt. It's going to be a 2-hitter, and we get the flinch, so we get an easy victory. That brings out Gloom. We'll go back to Confusion, getting the one-shot. Just like that, we get through that final executive with really no issues. And with that out of the way, I think we're just going to Pryce here to try to get some more XP, plus get that badge boost in special attack that could be really, really useful, because at least Steelix has lower special defense. We might actually be able to deal decent damage with Confusion there, and if we can confuse it, we might actually have a shot of getting through. We're just gonna have to see if it works out that way, though. First up, we've got Pryce, though. He's going to lead off with his Seal. I'm just going to go Confusion here. This is going to be a 2-hit KO as he just headbutts. Out next comes the Dugong. We can go back to Confusion. We get a nice crit taking it to half health, and we should be able to knock it out from there. Sure enough, we do. We get to level 33 as Piloswine comes out, and this looks like a 3-hitter. It goes for the Fury attack, which did a lot of damage, and then we get Blizzard and get frozen. So unfortunately, we're losing this attempt because of the freeze. Otherwise, we might have had a shot there. We might have just needed a slightly better range or something like that. So back again here, we're going to try to get through the Dugong more efficiently this time. This time it's just going to be a 3-hit KO. Once again, we get to level 33 as Piloswine comes out, and we confuse it and get the crit. So here it just goes missed. He goes Hyper Potion after that, but we're just going to keep hitting him with the Confusion. And then he finally hits a Fury attack, but it doesn't matter. We get the victory against Pryce on the second attempt. So with that, at least we've gotten through 6 gyms with our Espeon. The question now is, how do we do against Jasmine? We're 3 levels away from learning Psybeam, and that could actually be relevant here just because it would be an upgrade on our Confusion and possibly give us a chance to get through if nothing else does. So let's get into the gym and test this out and just see if we can manage the victory, or if not, maybe just drop those 3 rare candies to try to get a range with a slightly stronger psychic type move. So Jasmine attempt number 1 right here. Let's go for the Mud Slap on the first Magnemite. This is going to be a 2-hit KO. So with the Paralyzed Cure Berry, we should at least be able to get through these Magnemites most of the time. A critical hit will not quite one-shot here, but we do get through to the Steelix on full health. Now I am going to go pretty hard on the Mud Slaps here because we can see we are below half health from that first Iron Tail, and we're just getting 2-hit KO'd right here. Still, let's reset a few times to see if we can get a run where we actually set up all of the Mud Slaps on that Steelix and then just see what that does to the ranges. Now, I've decided that I will go for the Goldberry strat here just so that we have the ability to heal back up. Still, a low roll from the Iron Tail will actually not get us below half health. So within a few levels, we could probably purely survive 2 Iron Tails here. We're just going to have to see if that's the case or not. But I want to get at least one run where we get the accuracy of that Steelix down all the way, and then we can test out how our moves do. So this time, Steelix at least has its accuracy lowered all the way. It's at 61 HP right now. Let's see what Confusion does against this Pokemon. It did pretty decent damage. 23 HP right there. I'm expecting her to Hyper Potion pretty quickly here, but that should mean that this is a 5-hit KO from the current range. So if she just keeps missing, we could get the win. We even get it confused, so it hits itself in Confusion, and we get a critical hit. So we finally do manage to get through. It took 29 attempts to get that level of luck there. I did change to the Goldberry strat midway through. If we went for the extra rare candies and got the Psybeam, we would obviously be getting more damage there, so it might be a 4-hit KO rather than a 5-hit KO, and we might be able to get to the point where we actually purely survive 2 of those Iron Tails, meaning we wouldn't need the Goldberry. We could go back to the Paralyzed Cure Berry. But very interesting to see that that's what it takes to get through with this Espeon. It does manage to get through, but it was not pretty. Still, with that done, it's time now to check in on Umbreon. So now Umbreon comes in with Pursuit, Tail Whip, Headbutt, and Mud Slap. And I'm honestly not sure if we're going to deal enough damage with just Pursuit, especially because Umbreon is much more of a defensive Pokemon than an offensive Pokemon, so this could be pretty tough. We technically could upgrade Pursuit with Hidden Power Dark, which is technically our strongest move. We also will get Confuse Ray at level 30, and that could be a strategy for getting through. Now, because we have a disadvantage against the fighting type, I think we have to go to the Rocket Hideout first here and just gain as many levels as we possibly can. Then I think we take on Pryce first in this one because he's not going to have any sort of type advantage against us, and our defensive stats should make it possible to get through. What I'm really nervous about, of course, is the weakness that we have against Chuck and just the fact that we don't have any great moves for Jasmine. Like, I really wish that they had given more type coverage to the evolutions rather than making them so monotype. I'd argue that it was even worse in Gen 1, where outside of Jolteon, getting like double kick and pin missile and Vaporeon having access to ice type moves, they were all basically kind of generic. But here with the Gen 2 evolutions, I feel like the movesets they get are even more limited, which really is kind of sad to see. Like here we do get access to things like Shadow Ball, but we can't really use that in this section. Zap Cannon is available, but not until we get to Kanto. And the same is true for Psychic. And then we learn moves like Nightmare and Dream Eater that we can't actually even make use of because we don't have a sleep-inducing move. So Umbreon kind of got the short end of the stick, I feel like, when it comes to movesets. And we just have to hope that its defensive bulk is enough. And here, while we do manage to get through the Rocket Hideout with Umbreon, it's definitely not because of its same type move, Pursuit. Headbutt has been doing most of the work here. Still, we make it to the final executive, so let's just see how she deals with our headbutts. We're going to just headbutt the Arbok, and this is going to be a 3-hitter. Still, we get a couple flinches, so we get through that Pokemon just fine. Gloom comes out next. This is going to be another 3-hit KO, and we're kind of hoping not to get put to sleep for a massive number of turns here so that we can actually knock this Pokemon out. We do finally wake up and get to level 30 after knocking that one out. So I'm going to go ahead and learn the move Confuse Ray. I'm going to learn it over Tail Whip. I think that's the best play, honestly. And now against the Murkrow, we're just going to stick with the headbutt here. It's going to be a 2-hit KO to knock that Pokemon out. But we're definitely not doing great damage here. So we're going to have to see if this is enough or not. I think a lot of fights are going to come down to confusion strats. The only reason I thought about keeping Tail Whip and forgetting one of my other moves is so that I could go for Tail Whip confusion strats in order to get the opponent to deal more damage to themselves. But I think in general, we're probably still better off going for the confusion and then going into our damage dealing moves. But who knows? Losing Tail Whip might actually mean that we can't get through Jasmine. And I accidentally let the last Electrode self-destruct on me, so I need to go back so that I can actually catch it, so we get no experience there. But with that done, we can now go and take on Pryce. And let's just see if he's possible or not with our Umbreon. So Pryce attempt number 1 right here. Let's go for the headbutt on the Seal. It's going to be a 3-hit KO. With that in mind, I'm going to confuse this Pokemon. It hits itself in confusion, and that allows me to knock it out with 1 more hit. We're going to confuse this Dugong, especially because we got the speed drop, so we are slower. And that's going to allow us to get a little bit of chip damage as well as using our headbutts here. So let's just keep it confused as much as we can so that hopefully we can get through without the rest. Sure enough, we do. Now we can confuse the Piloswine. It misses the first Blizzard. We get a nice critical hit headbutt with a flinch. And the confusion plus flinches is a pretty good strategy for getting through some opponents here. He finally goes for the Hyper Potion and then snaps out a confusion to knock me out with a critical hit Blizzard. Let's try this one again. So here we will once again confuse the Seal. It still hits Icy Wind, lowering our speed, which is an ideal. We're really hoping that it will hit itself in confusion one turn. We do manage to get it to hit itself at the very end, but we're going to be slower again than Dugong due to that speed drop. I think not getting the speed drop is kind of important to be able to get an advantage on Dugong by also having the chance to get it to flinch. Still, we do at least get it to go down. We can confuse Piloswine yet again. Goes Fury Attack this time. Now we're getting a critical hit with Headbutt, which is pretty nice. We can use that again, and we've got it all the way down on super low HP, but he goes for the Hyper Potion. Let's just see if Pursuit does more damage here. We get another Fury Attack after it snaps out of confusion. Now it hits itself. Now we can go for the Headbutt, get the flinch, and we finally managed to get through. That was super tedious, but we get to level 31 after beating Pryce. And now we have to go see if we can either get through Chuck's gym or get through Jasmine at this point. I actually think Chuck's still probably easier just because he likes to punt, but we'll have to see if we can actually get through the Hitmonlee and Hitmonchan first. So I'm at least going to test out my ranges against the trainers here in the gym, so let's just see how they go. First up, on the Hitmonlee, we're going to go Headbutt right here. We do slightly less than half. We get the flinch turn 1, but it's pretty clear that we wouldn't get a 2-hit KO, so I confused it, and then we actually do get the 2-hitter, so I should have just gone all in on attack. That would have been the play. We get to the Hitmonchan next. We're still on over half health, so we can confuse this Pokemon. It goes Fire Punch, which means nothing. Now we'll start our headbutts here as we get Comet Punch. and it's a 5-hitter even. But then Hitmonchan hits itself in confusion, so we do manage to get through the black belt bros. Now we just have to get through the rest of the black belts and hopefully make our way to Chucky Boy. Now sure enough, we make it through all of the black belts here with no additional resets, so now it's just about Chucky Boy himself. Here, I'm pretty sure that we just get wrecked if we actually get hit by a dynamic punch. Even a critical hit karate chop might do us in, but let's just see if we can find a way to get through this fight. So Chucky Boy attempt number 1 right here. I'm going to lead off with a headbutt on the Primeape. It does slightly less than half. Let's see if we can get a 2-hit KO range. Not here, but we get another flinch. So we actually managed to get through on full health to the Poliwrath. I'm going to confuse this Pokemon first. It hits the dynamic punch and takes me to very low HP with a crit. Now we hit ourselves in confusion, and I think we absolutely need to lower this Pokemon's accuracy if we're going to get through. We just go down on the first attempt due to self-inflicted confusion damage. So in this second attempt, I am going to use Confuse Ray first on the Primeape, hoping it hits itself at least once. That allows us to get through. We did get a Leer, but that's it. Now I'm going to confuse the Poliwrath. It hits itself turn 1. I'm going to use this chance to set up a Mud Slap turn 2. Now I'm going to headbutt here. We get hit by the dynamic punch, but we do survive. Still, we're hitting ourselves in confusion, and we get hit by another dynamic punch, taking us down. We absolutely need to get that Pokemon confused for multiple turns, hopefully lower its accuracy in addition to that, and that's, I think, going to be the key to getting through this fight. So once again, we will confuse Poliwrath. It does hit the dynamic punch, but does less than half without the Leer on. Now it does hit itself in confusion. We're going to reconfuse it after it snaps out of confusion. It hits another dynamic punch on us, taking us to low health, and then it hits even a third one. In spite of being confused, it just keeps hitting us with the dynamic punch. And for some reason, even though I'm setting up Mud Slaps here, it just keeps landing the dynamic punches on me. In spite of the fact that that move has less than 50% accuracy, it just seems to not want to miss with that move. Still, let's just see if we can get the KO. We got it within 1 hit of going down, only to get then hit with another dynamic punch and knocked out. This time we get multiple flinches, so we actually end up getting through the Poliwrath with no damage taken, but that took 8 attempts on Chuck to actually get it to go. That is insane. It kind of makes sense with the type weakness, of course, but it was just that he was literally hitting every dynamic punch. Even when I tried to set up things like Mud Slap, he would just hit it after that. Even when I confused him so that he should have a 50-50 chance of hitting himself in confusion on every turn, he would still just manage to hit 3 dynamic punches in a row. That was just terrible. And that makes me really nervous going back to Jasmine now, because she is the only trainer left and we just don't have anything good to use here. I will be seeing how our dark type moves do because of the fact that they are at least special and therefore should do slightly more to the Steelix, but I'm not super confident here because it's not like we have a massive special attack stat like we were dealing with Espeon, so it's not a situation where I expect to do tons of damage. We're really hoping that our defense is high enough to allow us to survive quite a few hits. Now, I do think this is another spot to go for Goldberry strats against Jasmine, just hoping that the Mud Slaps will get us through the first 2 Magnemites. Let's see if it actually works out though. So here in the first attempt against Jasmine, we're going to Mud Slap the Magnemite. We still get hit by Thunder Wave here, but we can see this will be a 2-hit KO on that Pokemon. So at the very least, we should have a chance of getting through here. And Thunderbolt doesn't do that much. Now when we get to the Steelix itself, we get a critical hit Iron Tail, so we didn't really get to see the normal range. But yeah, it's not doing nearly as much as it seemed it was doing to the Espeon in the previous run. We could probably even survive 3 Iron Tails at this point. So let's just test this out a little bit more. So we do manage to get a run where we get to the Steelix on full health with no status. We confuse it this time. Now I'm going to go into the Mud Slaps, but the strategy here is to keep this Pokemon confused as much as possible while also lowering its accuracy. We get a Screech when it snaps out of confusion there, so its Iron Tail will do a lot more damage than usual to us, and it seems to only be confused for like 1 turn here before it hits and does massive damage. And unfortunately, we simply go down because we couldn't keep it confused for more than like 2 turns at most, and which was just very bad luck with the confuse raise. What's even more ridiculous, of course, is that the Iron Tail is only 75% accurate, and we had set up pretty much all of the mud slaps there, and yet it still just hits every single one, it feels like. Gen 2 is definitely trying to tell us, stop using accuracy strats. They're terrible, where even when a move isn't supposed to hit even half of the time, it just hits multiple times in a row. This time we seem to be getting much better luck though, as we're continuing to set up all of the mud slaps here, and once we get the accuracy all the way down, I'm going to switch into Pursuit to see what it does, and Pursuit did 10 damage here. It's definitely not a great range, but if we can keep the Steelix confused and get it to hit itself like half of the time, we may be able to whittle this one down, even though we're not dealing as much damage as we were with some of the previous evolutions. Here, Steelix continues to hit itself in confusion. We're still on full health. She's used her Hyper Potion, and just like that, we get a run on the 7th attempt, where we actually managed to beat Jasmine with no damage taken, just because we actually got the luck that we needed. Even after all those attempts where we simply couldn't seem to dodge a single attack, we finally get one where we get through with no issues. Anyway, with that being done, it's now time to check in on our channel member picks that are evolutions. I think we start off with Flareon. I think that's going to be the easy one. Jolteon might be a little sus. We're going to have to find out, but let's get into this. So it's time to check in on the Flaileon, the Flareon that came through with Flail up to this point in the game. It's being supported by channel member Shubham Varshney, who has already been a channel member for 19 months. Now with our Flaileon, of course, we're coming in knowing Mud Slap, Ember, Flail, and Headbutt. We're going to learn Fire Spit at level 36, which I'm probably not going to end up using. But if we get really desperate in this one, we have access to the move Fire Blast, and that could help us a lot when we actually get to the toughest parts of the game. But I think this is one that's perfectly fine to at least try to go take on Jasmine pretty early. We may as well just try Chuck while we're down there. We might not be able to get through the Poliwrath if it goes Surf a bunch of times, but we'll just have to see. Maybe on low health we can use Flail to get through, given the fact that we have a much higher attack stat here. First things first though, let's fight against these black belt bros and see if we can just headbutt them down. We're not even coming in fully healed, so we get wrecked on the first attempt. So let's go heal up, because Shubham told me that he's a doctor, and because of that, he should know the value of taking the proper time to heal after you've taken a little bit of damage. And with that properly done, now we can come back and fight against this black belt bro again. So let's try this in the second attempt here. We'll once again go for the headbutt. We're definitely surviving this time as we just get an easy 2-hit KO. That brings us to the Hitmonchan, where we're going to go for more of the same. Let's just headbutt this Pokemon. The Thunder Punch means nothing to us as we easily get through on the second attempt. Just a matter of actually healing, and then you're good to go. And now we can try our hand at the rest of these black belts here and hopefully make our way to Chucky Boy. And after destroying all of the black belts, we're ready to come to Chucky Boy. Normally you would say, well, don't go there, he's got the Poliwrath that knows Surf, but we've seen how much he loves to absolutely throw on fights. He's going to demonstrate it right here for us, and with that, I think it's worth at least trying this to see if we can get through. So Chuck attempt number 1, let's go for the headbutt on the Primeape. It flinches, and that's an easy 2-hit KO. Out next comes the Poliwrath. I'm going to go for the headbutt right here. It goes Surf, which dealt pretty decent damage. We're below half health, but I'm gonna stick with the headbutt here in case we can get the flinch. Maybe if we can get in the right range, we could think about going for the flails here, but I'm gonna lead off with the headbutt first because I really do think that we want the chance to get the flinch here. We get a flinch turn 1 this time and turn 2. We've got the Poliwrath on low health, and then it misses its attack, so we win on the second attempt against Chuck. And that's why you never run away from Chuck. You just come here and fight him immediately, even if you've got a type disadvantage. Doesn't matter. He's just going to throw on the fight eventually. He's basically the Lieutenant Surge of Gen 2. That's at least my personal opinion. Correct me if you think something else in the comments, but I honestly think that he and Pryce are like the 2 least impactful gym leaders in Gen 2, at least up to this point. Like, at least Whitney had us like digging into our bag to really find strategies to get through her. Chuck, you just like go in there and just, you know, I guess if we reset enough times, we'll eventually beat this guy, which is why I think so many Pokemon that have weaknesses to fighting are still in the running. Anyway, with that done, I think I'm gonna go try my hand at Jasmine here. Since we've got a type advantage, we're not going to be damaged by Iron Tail very much, so it's just a question of whether or not the Ember is enough to get through the Magnemites. Let's test it out and see. So Jasmine attempt number 1, we go Ember on the first Magnemite, and we just barely miss getting the one-hit KO. This could be a range at this point. We level up to level 33 after the first of these Magnemites, and now I'm not going to learn the move Bite. I don't think we want to learn that move. Steelix comes out next. We can go Ember, doing slightly less than half. We get a Rock Throw here that did pretty decent damage, and so we actually do lose the first attempt. Still, I want to test this out a little bit more because maybe Charcoal could be the way to get through here. This time we burn the Magnemite, and then it goes down from the burn. So Charcoal might just get us that range, and then we might be getting a better range here against the Steelix as well. We get a Rock Throw miss this time, then we burn it. So its attack stat has been lowered, and now we can simply use the Ember to knock that one out. That brings out the second Magnemite. It goes Thunderbolt and knocks me out here, but I honestly think Charcoal is the play. So here, coming back with the Charcoal at this point, we can just go Ember on the first Magnemite and still not get the one-hit KO. That's probably a really bad roll, though. I'm going to try this one again because there's no reason we should be doing less damage after adding on Charcoal here. Sure enough, after that, we can get a range where we do get the one-hit KO, so it's clearly just a range on that first Magnemite now. We can go back into the Ember on the Steelix, getting a critical hit here. She's going to go for the Hyper Potion, but that's basically fine by me. We'll simply knock it out in a couple more hits. She's got us on low health. We could even Flail here probably and win. Sure enough, we can. That brings out the final Magnemite. We go for the Ember and get the one-hit KO. So Jasmine does go down. Charcoal is the play there. All you got to do is beat Chucky Boy, and you can come back and beat Jasmine with this Flareon. Keep in mind, we are on max DVs. So if you're running on lower DVs, definitely go to the Rocket Hideout first, but it is ultimately possible to get through that. And now with that done, let's go to the Rocket Hideout, which would have been my next backup plan if that Charcoal strategy didn't work. But at this point, we've gotten through Jasmine, so I see no reason why we'll struggle against anything. So let's get to this final executive here and then get to Pryce, who also is going to be using moves that we resist, so we probably are going to get through just fine. Sure enough, we make it to the final executive with no issues in this whole section, so let's just go for the Headbutt on the Arbok, getting a one-hit KO. Out next comes the Murkrow. We'll just go Headbutt there as well, one-shotting that Pokemon. Out comes the Gloom. Let's try the Ember just to see, and we even get a one-hit KO there, so nothing survived even more than a hit. Granted, it was probably kind of lucky on the Arbok, but the rest of them, clearly no issue. And now we're ready to move on to Pryce. So Pryce attempt number 1 right here against the Seal. Let's just go for the Headbutts here. We nearly one-shot. It's going to be a 2-hit KO as we get a speed drop. So we're going to be just slightly slower than this Dugong. Still, I think that's basically fine, or actually it's not, because we're getting flinched over and over by its Headbutts. Oh, this is terrible. And we actually get a critical hit that knocks us out. So we need a run where we don't get the speed drop here so that we can actually outspeed and not have that issue. So I'm going to reset for that level of luck on this first Seal. It should happen a decent percentage of the time if we can just get a flinch or a critical hit. We'll get through this Pokemon with no speed drop. And Icy Wind doesn't always drop speed. It just drops speed a lot of the time. This time we get the flinch, which is all we really need. Then we can do anything to knock that Pokemon out. That brings out the Dugong, but now we are faster, so we get the flinches, plus we get a crit. That's super nice. And now on Piloswine, we can do anything. We can go Ember, we can go Headbutt. Because this Pokemon has lower special defense, let's try the Ember first, and we get a critical hit, one-hit KO. So Flaileon, it does get through. It's not perfect by any means, but it is able to beat Chuck and Pryce without too much issue there. And Jasmine was just fairly easy once we put on the Charcoal. So that's clearly the way to go in this one. And this Pokemon is now moving on to the Claire section, that's where I think we're actually going to have some issues, because we're not going to have anything great there. We might need to really get a super strong version of that Flail in order to get through. We'll just have to see. But I'd like to just give a massive thank you to Shubham Varshney for supporting the channel already for 19.5 months. Like, you're going to be coming up on your 2-year anniversary as a channel member pretty soon, and the support just means the world to me. I can't thank you enough. But with that, we now get to the next of our member picks. It's the Cake King coming in with his Flailbro, the Jolteon, who knows Thundershock, Tail Whip, Flail, and Mud Slap in this section. And this is going to be very interesting to see how this Pokemon goes, because obviously Thundershock does nothing for us against that Steelix. We are going to get access to Double Kick at level 30 though, and that could be the key to actually progressing in this one. So I think this is one where we can actually go down to Chuck, since we do have a super effective move against his ace. Then I think we go to the Rocket Hideout and we put off Jasmine till the very end. That's my strategy. Let's see if it actually works here for the Cake King. And the Cake King has been here for a long time too, like 13.5 months. So all of 2025, you've been supporting me. I cannot thank you enough for that as well. I'm just so excited that we have so many people supporting here, and that we're going to be able to go into 2026 getting ready to be full-time as a PokeTuber. It's truly just only possible because of people like you. So thank you very much, Cake King. And I also see him sometimes comment on that RBY Pokemon Challenges guys channel. So, you know, he's clearly hanging around here, making waves in the Pokemon content community. But he clearly knows, as far as his channel membership, where to put the correct one, because it is here on GSC Pokemon Challenges. Anyway, let's get the Cake King and Flailbro here into Chuck's gym and see how this actually goes. We're going to lead off against the Black Belts, where I think we go with the Thundershocks first here. Thundershock did not do as much damage as I would have hoped. We may end up having to Flail to get through. We do manage to get on low enough health that Flail gets pretty powered up. Now let's see how we do against this Hitmonchan, where we're definitely not doing much with the Thundershock, but Flail would have been a 2-hit KO there. So let's just try this one again, because I think we've figured out the strategy that works. Basically, what we do is we Thundershock once on that first Hitmonlee, and then we switch to Flail, and now on the Hitmonchan, we go Flail. It goes Ice Punch and freezes me. Are you kidding me? Come on. Oh, we would have gotten the KO on that next hit, I think. So let's just try this one again. Unfortunately, we are kind of in a range to sometimes get 2-hit KO'd by the Hitmonlee here. This time we get taken to really low health as well, and it just wasn't enough to one-shot from that level. Still, we do manage to get through on the next attempt, so we're back to the Hitmonchan, where we will once again go Flail. We get the Comet Punch, and that takes us down. So unfortunately, this is turning out to be a little bit more random than I would have hoped. Still, I think it will work out eventually on these two trainers. It's just going to be about getting this Hitmonchan to not freeze me and not get like critical hits and things like that. Once we get that level of luck, we do manage to get through there. So it's just random, but it's not impossible to get through with this Jolteon using the Flail strats. That's the only way we got through though. Now we have to see how we do against the rest of these trainers, where I think Thundershock is the play because they typically have lower special defense, but we just don't have great HP here. So that's kind of an issue. Still, I think we will be able to get through the rest of the Black Belts, and then we can try our hand at Chucky Boy himself. So I will go into this fight fully healed, just because I think we're not going to deal enough damage with Flail to get through if we come in on like low health. But if we get on low health, we may swap into the Flail to try to knock the opponents out. Let's just see how this actually goes against Chuck. First up, he leads off with the Primeape. We're going to go for the Thunderbolt here. It looks like this is a 3-hit KO. We get a Karate Chop, but we do manage to knock that Pokemon out. Poliwrath comes out next. We go for the Thundershock here, doing slightly less than half, and then Dynamic Punch destroys me. Clearly, the Leer had something to do with that, so let's just try this one again, but I'm not honestly sure what the range is for us to get knocked out there. We do manage to get through the Primeape again this time. Back to Thundershock here, and if we can just get some Dynamic Punch misses, I think we can manage to get through this. it's just going to be a little bit random. This time we paralyze Poliwrath. It misses a dynamic punch, but then it just had to hit after that. It was paralyzed and it could have just not moved for a turn or missed. When you put those two together, it's definitely way less than 50% to actually land a dynamic punch on us. So that was pretty bad luck. And the problem is that we seem to be getting to the Poliwrath with too much HP for Flail to really be a strategy there. So we're going to have to get through with our Thunder Shocks here. This time we at least get through to the Poliwrath with no damage, though we did get a Leer from that first Primeape. We wake up when it uses the Hypnosis on us, and that makes me think maybe we're not a one-hitter. Sure enough, we aren't, but we hit ourselves in confusion and knock ourselves out. If we had moved, we would have won on that attempt as well. So it just turns out that we're going to need a little bit of luck here with misses or with the opponent like using Hypnosis and letting us wake up. This time he goes for Mind Reader, and that finally allows us to get through Chuck. He finally decided, you know what? I've had enough of winning. I think I'll just let you win this one. And with that, we can move on in the game. Let's go to the Rocket Hideout though. We definitely aren't dealing enough damage with our damage dealing moves at this point to reliably get through anything. And the big problem of Jolteon is just that it doesn't have a great attack stat, so it's not going to be dealing as much damage. This Pokemon's far more focused on special attack and speed, especially speed. I think against Pryce, even if we get a speed drop, it won't matter. So we'll probably have an easier time in that fight, but we're going to have to see if we can actually get through Jasmine here or not with our lower defenses. Still, I don't expect the Rocket Hideout to be too bad as long as we can find a way through the Magnemites, and we do have Mud Slap at least for that, so we'll just have to see how this section goes. We get a level up and learn Double Kick here as well, which currently I'm going to learn over Tail Whip. I think this is going to be my strategy, and let's just go all in on attack on things here and see if we can manage to get some victories. Of course, that Double Kick should help us out even against Pryce's Piloswine, so I think it is a good move to have on the moveset. But I don't think we can forget the Mud Slaps because that may be our only strategy that actually gets through Jasmine's team. Still, the Double Kick makes quick work of Jed, so we might be fine with just that strategy. We'll just have to see here. It could be kind of random or kind of sus, but hey, we at least have a move that affects the steel types and gives us some coverage to possibly get through tough fights. So with that, we do make it to the final executive here in the Rocket Hideout, and I don't think she's going to be super difficult. Here against the first Arbok, I'm just going to stick with my Thunder Shock. We do slightly less than half, but we will be able to get through in 3 hits. That brings out the Gloom next, and I'm honestly not sure what to do, but I think Thunder Shock is the play. Everything's resisted here, but at least Thunder Shock uses our higher special attack stat. It's going to be a 5-hit KO, but we do get through that Pokemon. Finally, we get the Murkrow, which we one-shot with a Thunder Shock, so we get through on the first attempt with no issues. Now it's on to Pryce. So Pryce attempt number 1. Let's lead off with Thunder Shock on the Steel. This is going to be a 2-hit KO. It Icy Winds and gets the speed drop, but we're still faster than the entire team. Piloswine comes out next, so I'm going to go for the Double Kick here. And it looks like it's going to take 3 turns of this in order to knock this Pokemon out. We just keep getting the Fury attack, which is basically fine, and we nearly knock it out right there, but we're on low health as we finally get through that Pokemon. That brings out the Dugong. We go for the Thunder Shock, doing less than half, and that means that we simply go down right there. Flail might be doing more damage at that point. I'm honestly not sure, so we're going to have to test this out a little bit more. Of course, we could also get some critical hits here. We get missed from the Piloswine this time, which is perfectly fine. Then he misses a Fury attack, so we're going to get through the Piloswine with much better health. In fact, we take no damage from that Pokemon. That brings us to the final Dugong, where we can go back to our Thunder Shock here, and at this level of health, Aurora Beam's not going to do enough, so we simply get through and get to level 33 as we beat Pryce on the second attempt. So with Pryce showing once again that he's never really a wall, we can now make our way to Jasmine, and this is the one that I am nervous about. I am not sure if we can actually get through. We're going to try the Double Kick strats though. We might be able to just get through the 2 Magnemites with Double Kick on its own. and then we'll have to see how much damage we actually end up doing to that Steelix. We're probably still going to have to go for some sort of Mud Slap strat there in order to get through. Of course, Iron Tail won't do as much damage to us, but I just think that Steelix is so defensively bulky that Double Kick from a Jolteon might not deal enough damage. Let's get into this and find out. So Jasmine attempt number 1, I'm going to lead off with Double Kick here, and it just barely misses getting the range to actually knock out this first Magnemite. Let's see what Mud Slap does instead here. Mud Slap is doing over half, so it seems to me like we probably need to go for Mud Slap first and then go into the Double Kick and not use Thunder Shock, since that's clearly the wrong play. Let's try this one again. Now I'm going to see if the Paralyzed Cure Berry is enough here, or if we need a different strategy to get through. At least this will allow us to ignore one of the Thunder Waves as we go through this fight. This time we get confused though, and we're just taking way too much damage, so I don't think we're getting through on this attempt. Still, we'll come back in the next attempt where we get a nice Thunder Wave miss. Then we can go back to the Mud Slap on the second Magnemite and recover after it hits the Thunder Wave. And finally, we get a chance to see Steelix. And I'm going to lead off by just using all of the Mud Slaps here. Obviously, we don't take as much damage from the Iron Tail since we resist that move. So we can naturally survive 3 hits if we don't get a defense drop. With the defense drop, we are getting 3 hit KO'd there, but still that's a better range than what we've seen with most of the other evolutions. So I do think we're going to be able to find a way through this one. The much bigger question though is how much damage will we do with the Double Kick once we get all of the accuracy debuffs on that Steelix. So I'm going to reset here until I can get that to go and just see. So here with all of the debuffs set up, we have now gotten this Pokemon down to 62 HP. We're going for Double Kick here, and we can see it did pretty decent damage. Between the 2 hits, that was 25 HP's worth of damage there. This would still be a 5-hit KO from full health, but we should have a chance of actually getting through here as long as we can actually get the accuracy luck that we need. It could be that we actually want a Gold Berry here. I'm honestly not sure, but ultimately it's just going to come down to accuracy luck in the end, how many times we actually get hit by the Steelix's moves. This time we're on very low health, but we have gotten all the accuracy debuffs on. She's going to go for the Hyper Potion right there, but unfortunately we simply go down. It could be a situation where a critical hit also helps us in that fight, because if we can get a timely critical hit, we may just be able to one-shot from fairly low health on that Steelix. This time we get a critical hit instead on one of the Magnemites, allowing us to get through that Pokemon without any status. And now we just need the really good accuracy luck from this Steelix as we use all of the Mud Slaps. We can still survive 1 non-crit Iron Tail here. So we've got all the accuracy set up. We'll start using the Double Kicks. It does manage to hit another Iron Tail, and she was all the way down basically to get KO'd when we got the Hyper Potion, unfortunately. Still, if it misses 2 or 3 more of those Iron Tails, we will get through. And of course, when we had it down to 25 HP, it has to hit to knock us out. This time we've got it all the way down to low health though, and it doesn't manage to hit us. So on 1 HP remaining for that Steelix, we're gonna knock it out here with the Double Kick. And just like that, the TheKakeKing does manage to get through. It's not pretty, it's definitely not consistent, but you can manage to beat Jasmine with a Jolteon. The move Double Kick comes in just in time in this one at level 30, allowing you to actually have a move to get to Jasmine with and use it to knock her out. Still, it wasn't like that was the most consistent section ever, and I'm still kind of nervous going into the Claire section. I think I'm going to keep carrying Flail on the moveset for a while, and if we run into serious issues, we may even have to throw on a move like Thunder. It will be neutrally effective against the Kingdra in the next section. That could be a strategy if nothing else is working. Still, with that being done, we can now say that all of the evolutions have managed to progress up to this point in the game. Let's check our results so far. So just like that, we are up to 94 Pokemon getting through. Now, I could see some arguments for Eevee in particular being kind of sus here, and I don't think that that Pokemon's going to last much longer in this. Basically, anything that's dropped rare candies up to this point, I think is highly likely to fall off pretty soon, which is why Eevee has to end up in that OP TMs category as well. It ended up using the maxed out power return there, but we did manage to find a way through with all of the evolutions. Plus, we added the member pick evolutions to the completed member picks, so we are ready to now move on. And I think it's time to look at our Porygon and Porygon 2. Two Pokemon that are going to have some kind of interesting strats here. Let's see if they're enough to get through this section. So let's kick these off with Porygon 2, who's coming in with a moveset of Psybeam, Recover, Agility, and Conversion 2. Now, in theory, we can use Conversion 2 in order to become resistant to our opponent's moves. We can then use Recover in order to keep our HP up while we whittle our opponents down with Psybeam. That's the logic anyway, but let's see how this actually works out in practice. I'm going to start off by actually going down to Chuck's gym. Since we have Psybeam, it is super effective. Let's just see if we can find a way to actually get through here. Of course, there are plenty of types that are resistant against the fighting type, but you can also get access to the ghost type, which would be immune to fighting type moves, and that could be one way that we actually get through here. We'll have to see if it actually works though, or if there are situations where Conversion 2 doesn't actually give us that much of an advantage. Now, of course, the trainer that I'm most worried about with my Porygon 2 is going to be Jasmine, since she does resist the Psybeam, and we're not really going to get a lot of great moves here. We might be able to get to Tri-Attack, but I don't think we'll quite get there. Lock-On, I'm not sure actually gives us enough of an advantage in any way to actually use that move, but I'm really interested to see if we can get through this section without adding on a bunch of TM moves. Granted, there aren't really that many TMs that are even available to this Pokemon. Like, we could, of course, learn Thunder and learn Blizzard via Game Corner TMs, but that would put us in broken TMs categories. We could also learn Return, but that's kind of the same deal. And outside of that, there's really not a whole lot to learn. Like, Hidden Power Dark isn't going to be helpful here, so we may not really have any options other than to get through with what we've currently got. Still, let's just take on the Black Belt Bros and see how they actually go here. First up on the Hitmonlee, we're actually slower, and we do less than half with a Psybeam, while of course the Jump Kick did more than half. If the Quick Claw activates, we can move first, obviously, but that comes with us not being able to knock that Pokemon out in 2 hits. So this is going to be a little bit random. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to try to use Conversion 2 right here. So we get double kicked right there. We use Conversion 2 to become a poison type. Now I'm going to use Agility so that I outspeed and recover. And here I don't expect that it's going to be able to do that much damage to me. So I'm just going to take the opportunity to recover a lot of HP so that I go into the second fight without too much issue. And now we can use the Psybeam. We're going to get a 2-hit KO from there. It turns out to be a 3-hit KO, but still, we managed to get through with much better HP after using that setup. That brings us to the Hitmonchan, which we do outspeed. We can use the Psybeam here to do about half yet again, but this time we do get the 2-hit KO and easily get through that trainer. And with that being done, we can now make our way through the rest of the gym, I think. Let's just see how this actually works out. And sure enough, Psybeam is good enough for everything else in here, so we do make it to Chuck all right. And now we're just going to see how the Conversion 2 works for us as we get into this battle. So first up against this Primeape, we are just a little bit slower, so I'm going to go for Conversion 2 turn 1. We actually got the Quick Claw, which is not what we wanted to see, but then we transform into a Rock type. That's also actually really bad because the Fighting type is super effective against Rock, and Water would be super effective against Rock. So Karate Chop just destroys us there. We definitely want a better conversion than that. So we're really hoping to get something like the Ghost type here. There we go. Now we are actually a Ghost type. It took a few attempts to get that, but with that, that means that the Primeape can no longer damage us and we can't be hit by Dynamic Punch. So now I'm just going to go for the Psybeam and get the 2-hit KO. The Leers don't matter when we are a ghost type effectively. So as Poliwrath comes out, we're just going to go Psybeam on this Pokemon. It's going to go Mind Reader. It's probably going for Hypnosis, I'd have to guess. It still misses the Hypnosis because Gen 2, and that allows us to get the 3-hit KO victory. So it's just a matter of getting a conversion to the type that you actually want. And then that fight's really not that bad. We could have put on a Mint Berry there based on the fact that we kind of didn't even want to outspeed at that point with the Quick Claw. We want to be slower so that we can use conversion to turn 1. But hey, it ultimately works out and we do manage to get through that fight. But now with that done, let's go ahead and deliver the secret potion to Jasmine. And I'm just kind of interested to see if we can get a good conversion type here in order to get some sort of advantage against the Magnemites. I'm not sure if it's going to work or not. We might still have to go in with a Paralyzed Cure Berry for the first Magnemite, but if we can get the right typing, like say the ground typing or something there, we should be able to get through the Magnemites pretty reasonably. And then the question is just, can we get a good typing against the Steel and Rock types when we're up against that Steelix? So for starters, we'll go in with the Paralyzed Cure Berry, kind of hoping that we get the Thunder Wave so that we have the ability to convert into something that resists that type. Now we are faster, so I'm just going to go Psybeam turn 1. That did like very little damage, but now we can use conversion 2. We become an electric type. That's not really what we were looking for. I think we're looking to become a ground type there in order to get through these Magnemites. So here, once again, we'll use conversion 2, but this time we become a dragon type. Now we're a ground type. And once we become a ground type, of course, we have no worries about being paralyzed anymore, so we can simply heal up and then slowly whittle this opponent down, knowing that we don't have any real risks. Now, I am going to stall out when I get confused because I don't want to be confused going to the Steelix. But once we get rid of that confusion, I'll just go ahead and heal up one more time, and then let's just knock this Pokemon out. Now, I'm pretty sure she's going to send the Steelix out next, but actually she sends the Magnemite. That's very interesting. I wonder why she sends it out when we're supposed to be a ground type at this point. Still, I'll take it. I'll just use this opportunity to heal up once again. We confuse the Magnemite. It confuses me. So once again, I'm just going to stall out here, basically trying to get to the Steelix without the confusion on. And now we can simply knock this Pokemon out and we go to Steelix on full health. Now we're faster than Steelix, so let's lead off with the Psybeam. We get the Iron Tail, which misses. I'm going to transform into a fire type. Apparently, that's not great because I don't want to be weak against Rock Throw. So instead, I convert into a water type after that. And now he doesn't really want to use Iron Tail on me because I resist it. And Rock Throw is not super effective and not particularly strong anyway. We get Sunny Day at this point, apparently because we are a water type. And now the question is just, can we deal enough damage to get through here? We get the Steelix down to red health at this point. She goes for the Hyper Potion, and we're going to recover HP here as the Steelix will just continue setting up Sunny Day apparently because it thinks that we are a water type. Now we do have to be careful about defense drops here, especially because now it's apparently back to using Iron Tail against us. So I'm going to make sure that I'm healing plenty here to avoid an accidental KO. We get a nice critical hit right there. We only have 1 PP left in our move, Psybeam, and we've gotten this Pokemon all the way down to 5 HP remaining. The problem is simply that we do not have any more damage dealing moves. So I guess that we just have to stall out here and hope that we can use up our PP before we get knocked out. It is now out of Iron Tails, and it's got lots of Rock Throw PP remaining. So that is kind of a problem. And we have way too much PP remaining in our other moves that we're probably not going to be able to stall out here before we get KO'd. Now, of course, we can become a type that is resistant to Rock Throw. I should have done that earlier, but I think I'm going down on this attempt just due to the fact that I don't have enough PP. But wait a second, it's out of Rock Throws now. Do I have less PP than it does? No, it looks looks like I have more PP. So it looks like the Steelix is going to get to struggle before me. And then the question is just, does Steelix knock itself out before it can knock me out? Or is this going to end up being a tie, given that I am on -6 defense? And of course, I do in fact get knocked out. Still, this looks like a winnable fight, so I'm going to reset on this a few times, and let's just see if I can actually get the luck to get this to go. This time she actually sends Steelix out second, and that actually is kind of interesting because it will change our strategy a little bit. We're coming into this fight with more PP remaining in Psybeam, so we can once again use Conversion 2. The problem really lies in the fact that we don't have the ability to completely stall out at this point against the Steelix. Now in this one, she's getting like all of the defense drops, which is kind of bad for us. We would really prefer that she doesn't drop our defense too much, because if she does, then a critical hit can simply knock us out. So here we've once again wasted all of the Steelix's PP and its damage dealing moves. So we're just waiting for it to run out of PP and everything else and go to struggle. But I'm going to keep my remaining PP in recover for when struggle starts, just to make sure that I can actually recover HP and survive, because obviously ties always go in favor of the opponent. And even though we've got other Pokemon, if we get knocked out here, that is the end of the run for this Pokemon. So we're just going to stall out all of these Screeches and Sunny Days, and then hope that we can manage to survive the onslaught of struggles here when we have 104 HP and the Steelix has 16 HP remaining. We would expect that it would knock itself out first, but we are on -6 defense, which is why it might actually be possible for it to knock me out. So just like that, it has run out of PP, so I'm just going to go recover the rest of the way. I'll actually go Conversion right here. It goes struggle, dealing massive damage. We recover, and now it struggles again and gets a critical hit to knock me out. The Steelix is going down as well, but it just doesn't matter because that critical hit means that we got KO'd as well. This time we have managed to confuse the Steelix, and it's hitting itself in confusion. We still have a couple of Psybeams left, so this time we managed to just legitimately get through with the Psybeam. It took a bunch of attempts there. I was just kind of messing around with the strategy, and it's an incredibly long and tedious fight, but it's definitely winnable. We had a few there where I should have won if not for the fact that the Steelix just got a lucky crit. So I think that that's actually supposed to be more reasonable than what we actually saw there, as long as you have the right strategy for stalling out. But with that, we can now make our way to the Rocket Hideout and make our way to Pryce, which I don't think is going to be terribly difficult, but let's just see how this actually goes. Now, of course, our problem in here is going to be the enemy Murkrow that can't be affected by psychic type moves. We're going to have to figure out how to get through that Pokemon. We may need to struggle there. So I'm going to be making sure to use up a bunch of PP before that against various opponents. And I think there are various ways to do that. For example, if we're up against Eradicate, we can use Conversion 2 until we become a ghost and then just stall that Pokemon out, for example, and use up a bunch of our PP in order to make sure that we don't have a situation where we have too much PP going into the fight against the final executive. So we'll just see how that strategy actually works out, but it may be a situation where that's exactly what we're aiming for. We could even try to become a Steel type against the Arbok on that final executive's team, which yet again wouldn't be able to do much with its damage dealing moves, so that could also be a strategy for us when we get there. Still, we do make it to the final executive, so let's just see how this fight actually goes. First up on the Arbok, I'm going to set up Conversion here, hoping to become like a Rock type or a Steel type or something. Steel is perfect because it means that we won't be poisoned here, and this Pokemon literally has nothing good against the Steel type. So now we can simply recover, and we can go for the Psybeam and knock that Pokemon out. Out comes the Gloom next. We'll just stick with the Psybeam right here, getting the KO there as well as we get to level 33. And now, of course, our move does not affect the Murkrow, so we're going to have to use up a bunch of PP here. But Murkrow's Peck and Pursuit also aren't going to be great, so we can simply spam the rest of our Psybeams here. I actually used up all of my agilities in a previous battle, and now I reckon I'll just sit here and recover for a minute, and we can just use Conversion to change our typing here. Maybe maybe it will go into pursuit after that, but we're basically just trying to stall out and use all of our PP so that we can get to the point of using struggle. And we're basically just waiting to get to about half HP in order to go into our recovers. And once we manage to use up all of the conversion PP, we'll now just spam recover over and over again, hoping to get to struggle here. We've got an 82 attack stat, so it's not like our attack stat is very bad here. And I think that we'll be able to struggle this Pokemon down, but let's see if that's actually the case or not. Here we go struggle and do just slightly less than half, but we can see we didn't take too much recoil damage and it's just using haze at this point. So just like that, we managed to win against the executive in spite of the fact that our only damage dealing move could not affect dark types. So I think that's pretty legit, honestly. And now we're going to be able to get through these electrodes and make our way to Pryce. So here we are, Pryce attempt number 1. Let's just go ahead and go for the Psybeam right here. We get the Icy Wind. I'm just going to set up agility after that in order to make sure that I can outspeed. Then let's use conversion to become a type that will basically resist everything. We're now a steel type. So here we can just knock out the seal after that. The Dugong's not going to have any good moves against steel type, so we shouldn't take too much damage here. The only problem is that we're not dealing very much damage, so the Dugong's probably going to be able to rest. Still, we actually managed to knock it out. That brings out the Piloswine. We can go for the Psybeam here, and it looks like that's going to be a 3-hit KO if the range holds up. Blizzard does basically nothing, and just like that, we managed to get through Pryce on the first attempt. So we basically completed this whole section with probably the most anti-speed running strat that I've ever seen in my life, by just using conversion 2 tactics with agility and recover to stall out opponents until we could get them to, struggle, or until we could struggle against them. Like some of the longest, most tedious fights that you will ever see. But that's actually one of the things that I like about minimum battles, is that it leads you to these strategies that you would never see in the standard speed running meta of Pokemon solo challenges. Like, everybody's just how fast can you beat the game, so they just level up until they can 1-hit or 2-hit KO every opponent in front of them with a damage dealing move, which completely just bypasses these really interesting situations where Pokemon like Porygon 2 can get through to this point in the game with only Psybeam as a damage dealing move, because it has enough other tools to actually make that possible. That is incredible to me, and it means that Porygon 2 is moving on, and quite frankly, we probably don't need to change our moveset until at least Karen. That's my prediction right now. We'll see if that holds up or not. Of course, we will be going up against the rival. He has a Sneasel on the team. We may need to get up to some shenanigans to get through that Pokemon. I'm not sure, but maybe then we go into Tri-Attack strats, and then it's just Karen's Gengar that is potentially a problem for us. And by the time we're to Lance and Karen, maybe we're just doing some, Thunder or Blizzard sort of strat in order to get through. I'm honestly not sure, but I'm going to be very interested to see how this Pokemon progresses. So now it's Porygon's turn, and Porygon is essentially running the same set, except it knows Swift as well as Psybeam. So it has 2 damage dealing moves and no agility, which of course might be a mistake, but I don't think there are too many spots where we're being outsped here that's actually going to matter that much. So let's just get into this and see how it goes when we actually do have a little bit of coverage. And in this one, I'm actually going to route differently. I'm going to go to the Rocket Hideout first. Let's just get through that section, get some additional levels, and then we will go back down to Chuck and Jasmine. This will obviously be even easier because of the fact that we have Swift for that Murkrow, so we should be able to get through without even having to go full stall. But honestly, we'll see how it actually pans out, because the lack of speed could be a problem in some of these battles. So of course, Porygon also gets through the Rocket Hideout just fine, even though it's coming here at a lower level. We're ready to take on the final executive. She's going to lead off with that Arbok. I'm just going to go for the Psybeam right here. We are slower, but it's going to be an easy 2-hit KO. We do get poisoned here, which is kind of bad. That brings out Gloom, though. We'll be faster than this Pokemon. It's going to be a 2-hit KO. We get Absorb, which isn't too bad. We can simply knock that Pokemon out after that. Murkrow comes out next, and I misclicked using the wrong move. Here, however, we'll go ahead and transform. It goes Pursuit. I'm just going to heal up here because of the fact that I'm getting on kind of low health. And then let's just use Swift, which should hopefully allow us to deal enough damage to get through here. And sure enough, it does. We get through with no issues whatsoever. So now let's just go try Pryce with our conversion strats and see how it goes. So Pryce attempt number 1 right here. Let's go ahead and just use Psybeam turn 1, and then we're going to use Conversion 2 after that. We become a Steel type just like in the previous run, which should be pretty good here. We're just going to now try to knock this Seal out. We're not getting the same ranges, obviously, that we got previously with Porygon 2, partially because we're coming in at a lower level. So we are getting kind of stalled out with Rest here. Still, we managed to confuse the Seal. Maybe it will hit itself in confusion. Sure enough, it does. That brings out the Dugong next. It goes for the Aurora Beam. We get a nice critical hit Psybeam turn 1, but this is going to take a lot more hits. And the Pokemon knows Rest, which is pretty bad for us. So we're really hoping to confuse it and hopefully get that as a way to actually get through here because we're even slower, so we don't have any sort of advantage there. And sure enough, we're going to run out of PP in the move Psybeam, and we need this Pokemon to run out of Rest PP. Here we actually do get a Quick Claw activation that allows us to knock that one out, though. We get to level 30 as the Piloswine comes out, and it does not know Rest. So we're just going to be dealing with the Hyper Potion here as we use our Swift over and over again. We get a nice critical hit there that forces him to use the Hyper Potion. We still have plenty of PP, so while this is certainly not fast, it is going to be possible to get through here, and the Piloswine really couldn't do anything against us. Short of a freeze, we were going to win that fight. So very nice. We managed to get through Pryce on the first attempt. It's not fast by any means, but we didn't expect that based on the last section with that Porygon 2. So now we can just move on in the game, and I think the next place to go is to Chucky Boy's gym. We will have a type advantage there. It's not like Swift and Psybeam are super great against Jasmine, so let's just see how this actually goes. It's worth noting that we were even at more of a disadvantage because we didn't fight all of the trainers in the lighthouse, so we were probably 1 to 2 levels lower than we were with the Porygon 2 at the start of this section, and getting access to this extra XP could also help us out quite a bit and might have made Pryce a little bit easier. Still, with all that done, we're ready to get into Chucky Boy's gym, and let's just see how it goes here against the Black Belt Bros. Of course, we've got the Hitmonlee out first. We're still slower than this Pokemon, so short of a Quick Claw activation, we're going to need to go for the Conversion 2 turn 1 so that we can get a typing that is resistant to fighting type moves. Once we get that, we should be able to get through this Pokemon just fine. We even confuse the Hitmonlee. I'm just going to take the opportunity to heal up so that we have plenty of HP as we go into the Hitmonchan fight. And with that, we can knock that one out on the second attempt. That brings out the Hitmonchan, which I think we can go all in on attack against because its elemental punches really don't do that much. We get an easy 2-hit KO on that Pokemon, allowing us to progress in the gym. And sure enough, we get through to Chucky Boy with no issues, and now it's time to just see if we can beat him. Let's get into this and find out. So Chuck attempt number 1 right here. I'm going to go for Conversion 2 against the Primeape, hoping to become a Ghost type here. Finally, we get it on the second Conversion 2, which means we no longer need to worry about the Leers because fighting type moves and normal type moves cannot affect us, so we just knock out the Primeape after that. That brings out the Poliwrath. We'll stick with the Psybeam. It goes Mind Reader here and then Hypnosis. Fortunately, we had the Mint Berry on, and now it misses Hypnosis, allowing us to get the victory on the first attempt against Chucky Boy. So that's perfectly fine. We got through that gym. I kind of expected to get through that gym. Now we have to go take on Jasmine. She's the only trainer left, and I'm interested to see how the fact that we actually will have some extra damage dealing PP with the move Swift affects this battle. I mean, it's not like we were really using agility for anything in the previous one. It was simply a move to use. So Swift at least allows us to deal a little bit of chip damage. It's not going to be a lot each time we use Swift, but probably enough if we get to the point of just stalling out that Steelix. We can probably just use that as another way to slowly get through the fight. So I think it's less likely that we get to the point of using Struggle here, or even the Steelix using Struggle, and it's more likely that we can actually win within the PP that we have. But let's just see if that's actually the case. So first up, we've got the Magnemite. We're going to go Psybeam turn 1. We're hoping that it uses Thunder Wave against me. I have the Paralyzed Cure Berry on, and then we're hoping to become a Ground type. When we become a Grass type instead, that is not what we were looking for. We're going to have to just sit here and use other moves. Still, we managed to get through that first one. We can recover right here and then transform against the Steelix. We become an electric type here, which I'm not sure is ideal by any means, but hey, we confuse the Steelix after that. It goes Screech, and then Iron Tail is doing a lot of damage because we're on -2 defense, and a critical hit simply knocks me out. Let's try this one again. This time we do convert into a ground type and then knock out the first Magnemite. The second Magnemite comes out even though we're a ground type here, and we confuse it and it hits itself in confusion, and then a crit just takes it down. So we're to the Steelix. We go Psybeam turn 1. It goes Iron Tail. We use Conversion 2 to become a Steel type ourselves. Now we can go into the Psybeams, and we're just hoping to get this Pokemon to whittle itself down. We confuse it. It hits itself in confusion right there as we recover some HP, and we're just going to try to keep our HP nice and high so that we don't have any risk of a crit knocking us out. And here we're just slowly whittling her down until the point that she does use the Hyper Potion. We've got 10 PP remaining in Psybeam at this point, and we're kind of banking on some of these Iron Tail misses. Of course, it should miss 25% of the time, and no defense drops up to this point, which is really lucky. I think without defense drops, we have an even higher chance of actually getting through this. Here we get a Screech, but the Iron Tails are finished, so we're just going to recover. There's no need to change our typing, and we just have enough PP, it looks like, that we simply knock out the Steelix there. So coming to Jasmine last means that you can deal enough damage that you simply get through without even needing the full like stall out, forcing it to struggle shenanigans. That means that we managed to get through with Porygon as well as Porygon 2. So jumping back to our results, we now have 95 Pokemon legitimately getting through here. But like I said, the Porygon strats there, especially the Porygon 2 stall out strats, are just absolutely incredible to me. And I'm gonna have to get that Porygon out of the Pass with Struggle section, because this isn't like the other Struggle Pokemon where we had to like use up PP on wild Pokemon. No, it used Struggle because it legitimately gets to struggle in a normal minimum battles setting. So I'm actually going to pop that one back up into the winners column, which will put us at 96 passers at this point. But like I said, I just find it super interesting whenever we can find a strategy that works, even though it doesn't fit like the standard meta of solo runs. And Porygon 2 gave us an opportunity to really show something like that, where yes, it's stall. Yes, I know stall is really popular in Gen 2 competitive, but you almost never see stall strats in solo runs because of the fact that people are just trying to beat the game as fast as possible. But when you change the criteria, when you change it from being speed to being beating the game without optional battles, you can find situations just like that, where a Pokemon that normally you would think is just completely impossible or at least not reasonable actually does have a strategy for getting through a really tough fight. Porygon 2 absolutely demonstrated that a couple times in situations where you would say that moveset's not going to work, but sure enough, it does. Anyway, with that being done, we are now ready to move on to the rest of our challengers here. And I think we should quickly get our water types out of the way. We've got Octillery and Mantine and the channel member pick Remoraid, the LilGunFish. Let's get through these Pokemon and see how they actually go in this section. Let's just lead off with that Octillery. Now, Octillery comes into this section knowing Psybeam, Return, Aurora Beam, and Octazooka. I think this is a wide enough moveset to basically get us through anything. So let's go down to Chucky Boy first. Since we've got the Psybeam, it's going to be super effective there, and I think it's going to be perfectly fine because we're not really scared of Surf. Obviously, Dynamic Punch is only 50% accurate, so as long as we can find a way to deal enough damage, we should be good to go. And now, of course, we could upgrade to a move like Surf with our Pokemon as well, but I'm going to hold off on that for now. I really like having Octazooka just because of the fact that it's a signature move, and I like to see how far I can take signature moves rather than just replacing them immediately with something that every water type learns. You can disagree with me in the comments about that, but it's really one of those things that I personally find super interesting. If we are able to progress in the game with signature moves, I think that just adds to the character of the Pokemon. Anyway, we're going to take on these Black Belt Bros right here, where I'm going to lead off with the Psybeam, of course, against the Hitmonlee. It does slightly less than half here, which is kind of nerve-wracking because that means we do not get the 2-hit KO and we do get knocked out. We're going to have to try this one again. Maybe that was just a bad range with the Psybeam. Here we get the miss from Jump Kick, which causes crash damage, and that might be all that we actually need. Turns out not. We still don't get the 2-hit KO. It's a 3-hitter to get through that one. Still, we do manage to get through and go to the Hitmonchan. Let's hope it doesn't go for too much of the Thunder Punch, but instead it Ice Punches and freezes me. Are you kidding me? So we lose against the Hitmonchan to a lucky freeze. Still, I guess that just can't be helped. We're going to have to try this one again, and we're just getting wrecked again by that Hitmonlee. Here we get a critical hit, so we once again get through the Hitmonlee to the Hitmonchan, and we're just really hoping that we can actually get a good setup here. Instead, it goes Thunder Punch twice, knocking us out that time as well. So it looks like that fight just simply isn't working out for us. So I think we have to go to the Rocket Hideout to gain additional levels before we even have a real chance of getting through there. But before that, we should at least test the return strats, given that the Hitmons do have lower defense. Let's just see how much damage return does. Oh, it does way more damage. Okay, so yeah, return is the correct play here, it turns out. Like a single critical hit return would simply one-shot against these Pokemon. Otherwise, you're getting a 2-hit KO either way, so that does allow you to get through. So one of those situations where being too focused on what's super effective is definitely not correct when you have a move that is as strong as max power return here up against that lower defense stat. But for everything else here, I do think that Psybeam is the correct play, and we should be able to now make our way to the gym leader. And sure enough, after we get through that, we're straight to Chucky Boy. He's going to throw that rock to show us just how strong he is. But we're probably going to laugh at him by the end of this one as we just go for the Psybeam and get the Confusion on the Primeape. It goes for the Fury Swipes, but we knock it out the next turn. The problem here is that we're actually slower than this Poliwrath, and I'm honestly not sure what the best play is here. Like, I think Psybeam will do more damage, but Return might actually be the better play. Here it misses a Hypnosis, so we get to use the Psybeam. We can see that that did 45 damage, meaning this is a 3-hit KO. So I figure, what the heck, let's at least try the Return, but unfortunately we knock ourselves out in Confusion after the Dynamic Punch. Let's try this again. So this time on the Poliwrath, I'm just going to test out what happens if we go Return, but we get a Dynamic Punch again and knock ourselves out once again in Confusion. So here, when we use Return, it does 38 damage. So it's definitely weaker than Psybeam here, and we should be going Psybeam in order to knock this Pokemon out. And now it's just hitting all of the moves, including the Hypnosis and the Dynamic Punch, so we go down. Still, now that we've figured out the correct strategy, we can just go for the Psybeam here, but it doesn't really help you when you're getting hit by the Dynamic Punch every single turn. It seems to come and go in waves with this whole Chuck fight. Sometimes he hits everything, sometimes he can't hit anything, and there's not a whole lot that you can do about it. This time we confuse the Poliwrath after it misses the first of its Dynamic Punches. Then it hits itself in Confusion, and that does allow us to get through with 69 HP remaining, so it was a very nice run in that last one against Chucky Boy. Now we can move on in the game. I'm actually going to at least test out the ranges against Jasmine. I'm not sure if we're actually going to get through with Octazooka, but I figure it's at least worth a try, given that it is a same type move and is at least neutrally effective against the two Magnemites. And if we can get the KO, then we should be able to simply knock out that Steelix pretty easily. But let's find out if that's the case. Of course, if it doesn't work, we'll go to Pryce, but I just want to see if we can get the range at this point or not, so let's try it. So first up, we've got the Magnemite. Let's go for the Octazooka right here. It's going to be a 2-hit KO, so we're probably not getting through at this point. Now, Surf is probably a better move than Octazooka right there, so we can think about that if the Octazooka doesn't work, but I'm going to go ahead and make my way to Pryce first. We can get some extra levels in the Rocket Hideout, and that's probably all that we actually need, so let's just test it out. And sure enough, Octillery just destroys the Rocket Hideout, so we can try our hands at the Executive at the end. She leads off with the Arbok. We'll just go Psybeam on this Pokemon. It's going to be a 2-hitter, so we'll just knock it out with a return after that. We get to level 32 as the Gloom comes out. Let's go for Aurora Beam just because we can. That's an easy victory. And the Murkrow gets more Aurora Beam action, getting a easy 1-hit KO as well. So we managed to get through that fight with really no issues, and we're ready to move on to Pryce. Pryce, of course, gives a badge boost in special attack, which is kind of useful here. So let's just see if that makes any difference for our ranges against Jasmine. So Pryce, attempt number 1, I think the only play here is to go for the return, and we nearly 1-hit KO on the Seal. It goes for the Icy Wind, but doesn't get a speed drop, which is perfectly fine. Now we can go return on Dugong, which is a 2-hitter, and finally we get to the Piloswine, where Octazooka is technically stronger here, so let's go for it. We just barely missed the 1-hit KO. He hyper potions and then just gets knocked out the next turn, so really no issues getting through Pryce there, and now we're ready to move on in this challenge. And with that done, the only thing to do is to go back to Jasmine, where I think we test Octazooka. If it's not working, then we'll add on Surf. But that's basically going to be the progression here. I think those are the only two moves to really consider in this fight. Let's see how it actually goes. So first up on the Magnemite, I'm going Octazooka right here and getting the 1-hit KO. Magnemite number 2 comes out and also gets wrecked. That brings out the Steelix. We hit the Octazooka and get a 1-hitter right there. So it turns out that Octillery just needed to go to the Rocket Hideout and to Pryce, and then it comes back here and just completely wrecks Jasmine's gym. But with that being done, now let's check in on our Mantine and see how that Pokemon goes, because it might actually struggle more if it does get hit by an electric type move. It might not be able to get through Jed quite as easily. We'll just have to see. So here Mantine is coming in knowing Surf, Blizzard, Mud Slap, and Takedown. Let's see if this moveset is enough to get us through this section of the game. As a flying type, we are resistant to fighting, and we're resistant to water, so we don't have quite as much to worry about against Chuck, I don't think, but we're gonna have to see if our moveset is enough to get us through there. We obviously have the Takedown strat, but it comes with the issue of recoil, so we might end up having to go for the max power return here instead in order to deal neutral damage against opponents. We're just gonna have to see how this actually works out. So first things first, let's just get into the gym and take on the Black Belt Bros, and I'll test out between Surf and the Takedown strat here. So first with Surf on the Hitmonlee, it looks like this is going to be a 3-hit KO. Takedown also looks to be a similar range, so I think we just stick with Surf here to get the victory. That brings out the Hitmonchan. We're hoping not to get Thunder Punch. When it does Thunder Punch, that does massive damage, but we get a crit, so we actually get through on the first attempt. That was incredibly lucky, but hey, we'll take it. We can now move on in this gym. And here, sure enough, we make it to Chucky Boy, and he doesn't have any super effective moves, so let's just see how this actually works out. He leads off with the Primeape. I'm going to go for Surf, of course. It's going to be a 2-hit KO as he just goes for a Leer. That's perfectly fine. Now against the Poliwrath, I'm going to give it a Mud Slap to lower its accuracy with the dynamic punches, and then go for Takedown, which does laughably little damage. Like, Mantine really doesn't have a strong attack stat here, So we're doing very, very little and taking recoil. We probably should have had a Mint Berry on. We get a dynamic punch that, even though it's not very effective, does pretty massive damage to us. Let's see what Blizzard does instead. And we actually get knocked out on that attempt just because we couldn't deal enough damage to that Poliwrath. So that was kind of sus. Let's try this one again, and we might actually want to stick with a move like Surf here because it might actually be doing more damage than Takedown. Still, I'm going to then go all in on the Mud Slap strats just to make sure that we take as few hits as possible. And now let's go into Surf, and it's not dealing a lot of damage, but it's basically on par with Takedown except with no recoil. And here he just can't land any hits after we went for the accuracy strats, so we win. Still, that's a little nerve-wracking that it was that hard to get through Chuck just because we have like no attack. So I guess we've just got to move on in the game and hope that this is gonna be enough to get through. But that makes me think we should go to the Rocket Hideout next, just because I'm not sure if we're gonna get the ranges on Jasmine. Keep in mind, we are in the slow level up group here, so we're not gonna have as many levels. And if we're not one-shotting against those Magnemites, we're just gonna get Thunderbolted down, I think. So I think we have to reach a point where we can absolutely one-shot those Pokemon in order to have any chance of progressing in the game. Fortunately, we should have enough type coverage with our moveset to get through everything in the Rocket Hideout without much issue. So that's the way I'm gonna go. So here we do get to the final Rocket Executive without too much issue. I think I'm just gonna go Surf on the Arbok. It's gonna be a 2-hit KO as it just goes Leer. That's perfectly fine. Out next comes the Murkrow. Let's go for the Blizzard, which gets a 1-hitter on that one, and we'll stick with the Blizzard strat on the Gloom, which gets an easy victory there as well. So we've made it to level 30 now with our Mantine, and we're gonna go try our hand at Pryce. Even though he has neutral effective damage against us, I think we have enough damage dealing moves to get through, but let's see if that's actually the case. So Pryce attempt number 1 right here. I'm going to go Mud Slap first on the Seal. We get the Icy Wind miss, which is nice. Now we're going Takedown on this Pokemon. We just want to knock it out as quick as possible. And then we'll just Surf it down on low health. That brings out the Dugong next, which will stick with the Takedown here as it goes Headbutt. But the big problem here is that we're just taking too much damage. It looks like we're going to get knocked out. Let's try this one again just to see, but we might end up in this situation where we're just taking too much damage due to our own recoil, and that is enough to simply knock us out. It looks like the Seal can be 3-hit KO'd with Surf, so that's probably the correct play there. Now against the Dugong, we're not doing great damage here, but maybe if we're avoiding using Takedown and thus not getting as much chip damage against ourselves from recoil, we can actually find a way through. We're going to have to test this a little bit more. So now that I know that at least the Seal looks to be a 3-hit KO with Surf, I'm just going to use that move instead so that we get through a little more efficiently. And now we will go for the same strategy here against the Dugong. We're really hoping that it doesn't rest here, that it goes for Headbutt or something like that, allowing us to knock it out. That brings out the Piloswine where we can go Surf, which is super effective, and we get the 1-hit KO. So it turns out that it's just barely possible to get through with our Mantine. Remember, this is a max DV's Mantine, but it just doesn't have enough of an attack stat to really put a dent in opponents. Like, we could try to replace the Takedown with Return, with maxed out Friendship, but I'm going to avoid that for now since it turns out that it wasn't absolutely necessary. Still, with that done, the only trainer left to fight is Jasmine. Let's see if we can one-shot those Magnemites or not. If we can, I think we get a very easy victory. If we can't, then this might actually be borderline impossible. So Jasmine attempt number 1 right here. She leads off with the Magnemite. We go Surf, and that is a 1-hit KO as we get to level 31. Second Magnemite comes out. We wreck that one as well, and that brings out the Steelix. We can go Surf, and it's just barely not a 1-hit KO. She Hyper Potions after that, but I don't think we have too much to worry about. It still looks like a 2-hit KO, and sure enough, we get the victory. So Jasmine never stood a chance against our Mantine, and we get a nice easy victory. With that, of course, this Pokemon is ready to move on in the game, and we're ready to move on to another channel member pick. We've got to check in on that Remoraid. So we are here with the LilGunFish, supported by channel member Dead Rise for No One. He saved this Pokemon by giving it access to Octazooka and Aurora Beam as egg moves. And so we're running those two moves plus Psybeam plus Lock On here. And via level up, we might be able to get to focus energy in this section, but that's probably it. Of course, Octazooka is using return strats, so we know that that could be a way to get through as well with this Pokemon. We just have lower stats overall, obviously, than the Octillery did. Still, I'm going to take the route of trying to go through the Rocket Hideout first. Let's just see how that goes. And let's see if this unevolved form requires the move Surf by the end in order to get through this section. And sure enough, Remoraid gets through the entire Rocket Hideout, but it wasn't without any difficulty. We did actually have some troubles with Jed, who caused multiple resets because we weren't quite getting the one-hit KO. I had to put on the Mystic Water item in order to help with the ranges there. Still, with that being done, we get to the final executive where we can start off with Psybeam on the Arbok. It's going to be a pretty easy 2-hit KO on this Pokemon as we just get Wrap. And with that one going down, Gloom comes out next. I'll go Aurora Beam on this Pokemon. It's going to be another 2-hit KO. We get Absorb, but it didn't do that much. And we level up to level 30. As Murkrow comes out, we'll go for the Aurora Beam and get the 1-hit KO on that one, allowing us to progress in the game. So now let's go ahead and at least try our hand at Pryce. Let's see if he's possible or not without going return strats. Otherwise, I guess we'll make our way down to Chucky Boy and just see how he goes. So Pryce attempt number 1 right here. Technically, Psybeam is our best play, but it doesn't look like it's doing that much damage here. This is like a 4-hit KO on the Seal. Granted, it could get confused, but it did a lot of damage to me, so I'm pretty nervous here. When we get to the Dugong, we're slower and we just get flinched. Obviously, that's partially due to the speed drop, but I don't think we're actually going to get a win here without some sort of normal type move. So we might just have to go for the maxed out power return like our evolved form did. But before I go for that, I'm actually going to make my way to Chucky Boy's gym and just see how it goes. Maybe we can come back here at a higher level and get a better range against those Pokemon. So instead, we'll make our way into Chucky Boy's gym and just see how it goes against the Black Belt Bros. First up, we've got the Hitmonlee. We'll go for Psybeam here. It does less than half, and we take a lot of damage there. So we're going to need some help to get through this one. I'm going to throw on a Goldberry to try to get through this fight. So coming back again with a Goldberry equipped, we'll get double kicked, but then immediately heals, so we should be able to survive 2 more hits, and that does allow us to at least get through the Hitmonlee. Let's see about the Hitmonchan though. Here we go for the Psybeam. We get it confused, but then it hits the Thunder Punch and knocks me out with a crit. So this is definitely not looking great for our LilGunFish here. We're going to need a fair bit of luck to actually get through these Black Belt Bros. And it really comes down to the fact that we just basically have no defensive stats with this Pokemon, and we have lower attacking stats than we would have with the Octillery. So this fight is just not a super easy one to get through. And now with multiple failed attempts, I think the only thing to do is to copy our evolved form and throw on the max power return here. So let's just get that TM and get this on. We will simply learn return over lock on here, and that gives us a physical move, which will be much better against the 2 Hitmons here. So let's see what that does to the ranges. Sure enough, now we're getting a guaranteed 2-hit KO on the Hitmonlee, and we can make our way to Hitmonchan, which is probably more of the same. We might not have even needed the Goldberry for this one. Now it just goes Ice Punch, and we get the very easy victory. So that's probably all that it actually takes to get through this section. That might help with Pryce as well. So we'll just test that out in a minute. But for now, let's just make our way through the rest of the gym with our LilGunFish. And sure enough, after we get through the Black Belt Bros, nothing else in here gives us any difficulty whatsoever. And it's time for Chucky Boy himself. He throws rocks, we shoot Gunfish. Let's see who's actually stronger. So he leads off, of course, with the Primeape. We're going for the Psybeam here. It's going to be a 2-hit KO. He gets confused and hits himself in confusion, so that was very easy. We get to level 32. Poliwrath comes out next. We go for the Psybeam. It looks like a 3-hit KO. He goes Mind Reader into Dynamic Punch. We get confused, but we still move, and that allows us to knock him out on the first attempt. So just like that, we get through Chucky Boy. Now let's go back and try Pryce again, since we've gotten access to Fly and we've gotten access to Return, which should be doing significantly more damage here. Now, the reason I went straight for Max Friendship, of course, is to make sure that the move is as strong as possible. We were on lower Friendship before, which I don't think would have made it strong enough to actually make a difference here, but with the Max Friendship, we might actually put a serious dent in Pryce's Pokemon. Let's find out. So first up, he leads with the Seal. We'll go for Return right here. And yeah, this is going to be an easy 2-hit KO on this Pokemon. We do get a speed drop, so we're slower than the Dugong. It headbutts, but now this looks to be a 3-hit KO on this Pokemon. He rests, but that shouldn't be a big deal. We should be able to just knock this one out with Return while it's asleep. And just like that, we level up to level 33. We could learn Focus Energy, but I'll skip that move. And let's go to the Piloswine, where I think we go Octazooka. It's going to be a 2-hitter, but he just goes Fury Attack and gets wrecked. So just like that, we come back and completely destroy Pryce when we have access to the maxed out Return there. And only Jasmine remains to stand in front of our LilGunFish. Now, she is running Steel types, so theoretically, if anything was going to stop the serious ammunition that we have from a LilGunFish, it would be these Pokemon. Unfortunately, the Steel might not be thick enough to actually stop what we're about to aim at her. So let's just see how Jasmine actually goes. In this first attempt, I'm going to try to stick with Octazooka. Here, it does one-shot the first of the Magnemites. It's not going to one-shot the second Magnemite. It's just a little too weak. We actually needed a critical hit to get that 1-hit KO. So with that, I think we actually just break down and throw on Surf. It's going to be the strongest move by far. So we'll just throw that on over Octazooka. It's more accurate and more powerful as well. So I think it's the best way to go with a weak Pokemon like this. Let's see if that makes a difference. So now we can go Surf on the first Magnemite, which will get a 1-hit KO. Surf on the second Magnemite, also one-shots. That brings out the Steelix. We go for Surf, and that is going to be a 1-hit KO as well, getting us to level 34. So once you throw on Surf there's nothing to worry about with your Remoraid. Of course, assuming that it's on max TVs like this one, you will be able to completely destroy Jasmine, but it might not even need max TVs to get through at that point, just because the move is so strong. We may come back and test that someday in the future, but for now, LilGunFish is moving on. Let me thank Dead Rise for No One for 13 months of channel membership. All the way through 2025, you supported me, and I'm looking forward to keeping this Pokemon run for you in 2026. And I think it's going to be a whole lot of fun to see just how far this Pokemon could get, because I've complained a lot in this series about Gen 2 Pokemon, especially not getting a lot of type coverage, but the Remoraid and Octillery get a ton of type coverage. And so the only real question with this Pokemon is if its defensive stats are too low to get through the end of the game. Because we can see, looking at our stats, attack, special attack, and speed are all just completely identical for this Pokemon, and then the defenses are just significantly lower. So this is a good chance to see if all-out offense is better than defense, and it might get further than I had initially expected, especially when it originally failed in the Minimum Battle series. But it's a situation where maybe you just add on more type coverage and more moves, and then it gets through the entire game. We'll just have to see, but for now, LilGunFish moves on. Thank you very much for your support, Dead Rise for No One. Let's get back to the action. And with our water types done, we can come back to see that we're still sitting at 95 Pokemon up there in the pass column, which is of course because both Octillery and Mantine were using some TMs that I consider to be OP in order to get through here. Octillery, of course, was using that max power Return, and Mantine was using Blizzard. And it's worth noting that I will be allowing those moves much more freely when we get to the next section. I won't actually automatically put a Pokemon into this OP TM's column at that point, because we're getting close to the point where maxing out return would actually be reasonable, and we're getting close to the point where you could actually afford a game corner TM. I will be keeping Pokemon down there that use struggle and that need multiple game corner TMs, for example, to get through, but it's going to be something that's a little less strict as we get to the league, just because of the fact that, hey, I mean, you would actually just get those moves. But for now, those Pokemon are separated out, and it just means that you would have to put in a lot more time to actually get them here on minimum battles than the Pokemon that are up in the past column currently. Anyway, with those Pokemon being done, next up, we've got Skarmory, which is just kind of a one-off in this episode, but I do think that it's going to be very interesting. As a flying steel type, it should have some advantages in this section and then some disadvantages, because there are a lot of Pokemon that are at least doing neutral damage to it. And I don't think it gets a super wide move pool, so we're just going to have to see how it actually goes. So coming in with Skarmory, we are running Return, Hidden Power Dark, Agility, and Mud Slap as our current moveset. We can get access to Fly via HM, but only after we have defeated Chuck. And really, that's it. There's not really like another TM move where we're like, oh yeah, we can learn that move. Everything else here is basically stuff that's unusable for this Pokemon. So we're really going to have to see if we can find a way through Jasmine with this one. I'm honestly not sure. I think I'm going to start off by going to the Rocket Hideout and just seeing if I can get through there. We have the issue that we will be at least neutrally affected by ice moves, by fighting type moves, etc. So we're not going to be weak to things, but we're also just not going to have a whole lot of advantages either, because we don't really have moves to use against our opponents in order to make them softer, easier. So I'm not sure how this is actually going to work out. I'm really worried for this Pokemon when we get to Jasmine, just because of the fact that we're not really going to have anything good there. Like, yes, we've got the Mud Slap strats, and sure, we're not super worried about Iron Tail, but we're still not going to be in great shape, I don't think, at that point in the game. Still, I think this will be more than enough to get through the random trainers in this section of the game, so that's why I'm just going to get through as many of them as possible before I start taking on gym leaders. Then I think probably maxed out power return will be enough for Pryce and Chuck. Jasmine's the one that I'm just not sure what we're actually going to do to get through her. So sure enough, we get to the end of the Rocket Hideout without any major issues. We had one reset on Jed just because he hit with every single Thundershock and paralyzed me. But if he doesn't get that, you can get through with the Mud Slap. It's just a little bit luck based there. But now that we get to the final executive, I think we just go return. It's going to be a 2-hit KO on the Arbok right here. The Murkrow comes out. We'll just stick with the same strategy. It's going to be another 2-hitter. And that brings out finally the Gloom, where we can go for the return and get another 2-hit KO victory. Still, we're not like one-shotting things here. Like, even when we have a super effective move, our super effective moves just aren't that great. We have really low special attack, so it's not like the Hidden Power Dark is great, and it's not like we're getting any sort of advantage from using the Mud Slap here. So I'm just not sure if this is actually going to be enough to get through Jasmine or not, given the fact that we are going to get completely wrecked by electric type moves. So let's start off by going to Pryce instead and just see if we can find any way to get through here. I think we're going to have to just hope that the return is enough to get us through these Pokemon, but let's find out. So first up, we've got the Seal. I'm going to go for return right here. It looks to be a 2-hit KO. Icy Wind didn't do that much, though we did get a speed drop, which is kind of bad. Aurora Beam from the Dugong does significantly more. I could go for agility in order to outspeed here. Dugong rests, so I'm going to just take that opportunity to get my speed back up. We'll basically steal back a turn, allowing us to knock that Pokemon out. And now on the final Piloswine, return is basically the play. It goes Blizzard and destroys me. And we can see the max power return here did 34 damage, so it's probably going to end up being a 4-hit KO range there. It doesn't look like we're quite getting the 3-hitter. Still, let's just try this one again. Maybe we can go for accuracy strats there in order to get an advantage on that Piloswine. So I'm going to go ahead and just give it a couple mud slaps, hoping that the blizzards miss. Of course, if it does hit, we're going to take decent damage because it's neutrally effective. It's also worth noting that if we get any attack drops from Aurora Beam, that's probably the end of the run because of the fact that we're just likely to then not be able to deal enough damage to our opponents. And after a bunch of attempts, it just doesn't seem like that fight is working. So I guess the next thing to do is to go down to Chuck's gym and take on the randos there. Let's see if we can get through Chucky Boy instead. So here we'll take on the Black Belt Bros, where we're going to lead off with the return, of course. It looks to be a 2-hit KO on the Hitmonlee, and we didn't take that much damage from the jump kick, so we managed to get through just fine there. Out next, we've got the Hitmonchan. We'll go for return. Ice Punch didn't do that much, so yet again, we get through just fine. We have the advantage of having really high defense, so neutral damage from physical moves isn't that bad, whereas our low special defense means that we take a lot more damage from things like Aurora Beam and Blizzard, which is why we were struggling so much there against Pryce. I think we'll get through the rest of these randos in this gym just fine with the return strats and our higher defense. So Chuck attempt number 1, he leads off with the Primeape. We go for return, doing over half. Karate Chop didn't do that much, and we do manage to knock that one out. Poliwrath comes out next. We'll go for return, and that did 30 damage. So this would be a 4-hit KO from that range. We get a couple of nice Hypnosis misses. Finally, it hits Hypnosis, but we had the Mint Berry, and that means we actually do beat Chucky Boy on the first attempt, getting to level 30, and we can move on in the game. And now that we've gained a few levels, we can go back and try our hand at Pryce once again, or we can go try our hand at Jasmine, and I'm honestly not sure what the best play is. We've also gotten access to Fly here. I think it might be worth throwing on over that Hidden Power, but before I do that, I am going to at least try Jasmine one time just to see, because maybe Hidden Power Dark for some reason does better damage than our other damage dealing moves, though I highly doubt it. I mean, we've got such a low special attack stat, relatively speaking, that I just don't expect it to actually give too much advantage here. Still, who knows? I just want to test everything out, so let's just see how this actually works. I would not be surprised, though, if Skarmory ends up using a bunch of rare candies here, because it simply cannot get through these gym leaders. Still, let's test it out and see on Jasmine one time. We're going to go for the Mud Slap. We do about half to the Magnemite, and then it just goes Thunderbolt, which does massive damage. And there's really nothing that we can do about that because we're weak against electric, so we just easily get 2-hit KO'd there. I'm not sure the Paralyzed Cure Berry even does anything for us here, so I think the Gold Berry is the way to go just in case we can manage to get to the Steelix. But let's try this one again. Obviously, what we're really banking on is the fact that we can use Mud Slap first and maybe they can miss. It will be about a 25% chance for them to get the miss in this battle. So here we do get the miss from the first Magnemite. We're going to need the miss from the second Magnemite. The critical hit did not one-shot, which is disappointing because we really do need, I think, the luck to get that one-hit KO if we are going to get a crit there. Otherwise, it's a 25% of a 25% situation here, which is basically the same as a critical hit to get through those two Magnemites. Now the Steelix comes out, we can go for the Mud Slaps, of course, and we want to get its accuracy down as low as possible. Iron Tail's not going to do a lot to us, though we can get defense drops here, which is why I think we have to go all in on the setup here. Now, once we get that set up, we'll go for return, and we just see that it's doing very little damage. Even with a crit, let's see what the hidden power does. It's also laughably weak. So there's just not a whole lot of advantage to be had here. We are going to need a ton of turns of misses here in order to even have a chance of getting through the Steelix. She has used her Hyper Potion at least, and we are resistant to her damage dealing moves, and Steelix is getting on pretty low health. So if we can avoid too many hits, we might be able to get through. We did just use the Goldberry here, and it's all the way down. Are we going to win? We actually win against Jasmine once we finally get to the Steelix. I didn't even come in fully healed. So that was lucky, I guess. But hey, Skarmory, it finds a way through that fight a lot easier than I thought it would be. But now we've got to see if we can manage to get through Pryce at this point, who's going to be exploiting our lower special defense. Still, we've gained quite a few levels. We also have a badge boost in defense now, which is kind of nice, though probably not relevant for this one. But let's just see how this fight actually goes now. So first up on Pryce, we're going to lead off with the return on the first seal. We get a critical hit, 1-hit KO, getting us to level 31. Now we can go for the return on the Dugong. It's going to be a 3-hitter still, but we're going to get through at least over half HP. That brings us to the Piloswine. Let's see how much damage we do. It's still not great, but we did 36 damage now, so this should be a 3-hitter if the range holds up, and sure enough it does. So we managed to get through Pryce there. Skarmory moves on, and it actually had a lot less trouble with Jasmine than I thought it was going to have. You are banking on getting the miss from Thunderbolt from both of the Magnemites. They are not going for Thunder Wave. Normally, if you're going Mud Slap strats with Thunder Wave, you have pretty reasonable odds of getting through, but when it's Thunderbolt that's normally 100% accurate and you're using the Mud Slap, getting 2 of those misses in a row is basically on par with getting the critical hit. So if you're not reasonably consistent against the last Pokemon after that, then it's not reasonable to sit there and reset for that. Turns out that the Steelix, at least with the accuracy strats, isn't that good against Skarmory as long as you've got that Goldberry on. So very, very interesting to see. And with that, Skarmory moves on in this challenge. And with Skarmory done, I think it's time to just get into our fire types here. Let's check in on the Houndour and Houndoom. Houndoom, of course, will go first, and we'll just see how it does in this section. So Houndoom is coming in with Bite, Headbutt, Mud Slap, and Ember on its moveset, and I think we're going to have enough to get through this section, especially because we're not really scared of Jasmine, but I think it's best to go to the Rocket Hideout first and just try to get the levels that we can, because we are in that slow level up group. Now, we've done Houndoom before on the channel, of course. That was when we did the Halloween run, but remember, that started out on 0 DVs, so the results might be a little bit different compared to that run. Now, it turns out that we did not even go to the lighthouse last time, so I'm going to go ahead and just take care of that section right now so that we can also get access to strength. And we probably just need the XP to actually be decent here because of the fact that we're in the slow level up group. It has actually been a really big factor in a lot of these Pokemon's journeys because there's a surprising number of Pokemon, especially Gen 2 Pokemon, that have this slow level up group but do not have the stats to back it up at all. Like in Gen 1, when I think of slow level up Pokemon that were bad, it's basically Magikarp, but that was together with the fact that it evolves into Gyarados, which becomes fairly strong. Whereas Gen 2 has been giving us just a lot of these Pokemon that I look at and I'm like, that Pokemon is really not good. Why is it also in the slow level up group? Maybe they were trying to get rid of the trope that slow level up group equals strong Pokemon, which was basically the case in Gen 1, but there are definitely a lot of Pokemon that don't have the stats to stack up when they don't gain the levels. Houndoom might be one of those. It's not a super high rated Pokemon in terms of base stat total, but we'll just have to see as it goes through. Now, Houndoom does make really quick work of the Rocket Hideout, so we can get to the final executive here with no issues. Let's just see how she actually goes. She leads off with Arbok. I'm going to go for my Stab Bite here. It's going to be an easy 2-hit KO on that Pokemon. Murkrow comes out next. Let's switch to Headbutt, which gets a 1-hit KO. And now we can go for Ember on the Gloom, which doesn't get the one-shot, but we burn it and it's just going to go down in another hit. So we get a nice easy victory as we get to level 28. We're ready to go take on Pryce, against whom we've got a pretty big advantage since he's using basically ice and normal type moves. The ice type moves are going to be resisted. So Pryce attempt number 1 right here against the Seal. I think we can go for the Bite strat. It looks like this is probably going to be a 2-hit KO. Headbutt doesn't get the KO from there. I just figured I would test that out since it does have lower defense. But either way, we get it down in 3 hits and only 1 hit taken from that Pokemon. Here, I'm just honestly not sure which is better between Bite and Headbutt, but let's go ahead and try Bite on the Dugong as well. We get a flinch turn 1. It headbutts us turn 2 and gets a crit. but then we flinch it again, so we take that one down. Now for Piloswine, I'm going for Ember since it's same type and super effective. It did about half, but it turns out it's going to be a 3-hit KO here. He goes for the Hyper Potion, and we're just not quite getting the range, but he goes for Fury Attack again and doesn't deal enough damage, so we do manage to win. I thought we were going to lose that one, but we get the victory, get the badge boost in Special Attack, and now we are ready to move on in the game. Now, I always liked the fact that Houndoom has stats that synergize better with its moveset than a lot of Dark types. It actually has a higher Special Attack stat than attack stat, which is good in a generation where all Dark type moves are special. I never understood that though. Like, if you're trying to counter the Psychic type especially and the Ghost type, those types typically have really high special stats. I mean, many of them have decent special defense to go together with high special attack, so it just didn't make a whole lot of sense to me why you would make the move that's supposed to counter them be special and then give the Pokemon using the move that's supposed to counter them really bad special attack. It just makes no sense in my mind whatsoever. Of course, in later gens, when they made the physical special split, it's probably a lot better. But here in Gen 2, I find that Dark types overall seem a little bit underwhelming. So I'm really interested to see how this Houndoom does on max TVs here. We are going to come in and try our hand at Chucky Boy's gym. So against the Black Belt Bros, I'm going to go Headbutt here because they have higher special defense and they resist Dark type moves. We do manage to get the 2-hit KO on the Hitmonlee, but it did massive damage with that jump kick. So I'm not sure how this is going to go. We might need a flinch here on the Hitmonchan. Instead, we get paralyzed by a Thunder Punch and we go down. Let's try this one again. We really want to flinch the Hitmonlee or to get that, a crash because it missed the jump kick. With that, we can knock that Pokemon out and we're going to get to the Hitmonchan on full health. And since it has no super effective moves, we should be able to win this pretty darn easily. Even get a flinch there, and then it tries to Fire Punch a Fire Dog. Are you kidding me? Clearly just terrible strategy from the second Black Belt Bro, Lao, there. But with that being done, we can now hopefully make our way through the rest of the gym. Let's just see how this actually works out. So we do manage to get through all the randos and get to Chuck. It wasn't exactly easy. We did take a few resets here, and that makes me think that maybe we're better off to go to Jasmine first. Since we do have the fire type, we have Stab Ember, it's probably enough to get through her team, whereas we're probably going to struggle a little bit there on Chuck, and the badge boost in defense might actually help us there. So I'm going to go back to Jasmine first and just see how she actually goes. So Jasmine attempt number 1, let's go for Ember on this Magnemite, and it does get the 1-hit KO. Out comes the Steelix next. We'll go Ember, doing about half. We get a Rock Throw, but that doesn't really matter. We just get the 2-hit KO on that Pokemon. Now we Ember against the second Magnemite, getting the easy victory and getting the level 31, and we get the Mineral Badge, which gives us a boost in our defense. So with that in tow, now I think we have a much better chance against Chuck because of the fact that we're going to be able to at least theoretically survive a little bit more physical damage. Plus the extra level means that we should do just a little extra damage ourselves. Let's see if that makes enough of a difference to allow us to get through here though. So of course, Chuck leads off with the Primeape right here. I think this Pokemon we go Ember against. We didn't quite do half. Let's see what Headbutt does. Headbutt does get us the KO there, so that's perfectly fine. The Poliwrath comes out next, and I think the only play here is to go Headbutt or Mud Slap to try to lower its accuracy. Maybe we'll give it one Mud Slap just to lower the accuracy of Dynamic Punch, but now we're going for the Headbutts, hoping for flinches. We get one flinch, then Mind Reader, then a Dynamic Punch does massive damage, and if we could just move, we would win here, but we knock ourselves out by hitting ourselves twice in confusion. So we're going to need better luck than that, but it is looking like this fight should be possible. So here again, I just two-shot against the Primeape, but this time it used Leer, and that allowed the Poliwrath to just one-shot me with Dynamic Punch. So we're going to need quite a bit of luck to actually get through here. This is the biggest thing that I noticed when I did that full game solo run with Houndoom, granted on 0 DVs in that one, was the fact that this Pokemon has such low defense that really any strong physical attack seems to destroy it, which is not something that I expected from a fully evolved and super cool looking Pokemon like this. This time we get through with just a flinch on that first Primeape, so we should be able to survive at least one hit here from the Dynamic Punch. We get Mind Reader into Dynamic Punch here, and then we knock ourselves out in confusion. This time we get a flinch and then a crit that also flinches, so we finally managed to get through Chuck, but that took a ton of attempts with this Pokemon. We're up to 12 resets here. I think we took 8 attempts there on Chuck himself. Not very pretty, and that makes me think that Houndour might at least end up having to use rare candies here to get through, because it's going to have significantly lower stats than this. We're going to have to test it out and see if it's possible, but this could be really, really rough. So here with Houndour, we're running Bite, Fire Blast, Headbutt, and Mud Slap. Fire Blast should help a lot against Jasmine at least, so I might even go to Jasmine first in this one just to see if we can manage to get through. And Fire Blast, in theory, at least gives us some advantages by having a strong same type move. Maybe we can use it to get through some of the fighting gym trainers more efficiently, and maybe get to the point where at least the Primeape on Chuck's team is just a one-hit KO. We'll have to test it out and see, but that could be a real possibility. So here, let's just test it out against Jasmine and just see how she actually goes. Maybe we can manage the victory here. So Jasmine leads off with her Magnemite. We're going to go Fire Blast on this one, and that is a one-hit KO. Out next comes the Steelix. We'll stick with Fire Blast, and that gets a critical hit one-shot. We get to level 26 as the last Magnemite comes out. We missed the first Fire Blast, but then we hit the second one. That's all we needed to get through Jasmine with no damage taken, so we're ready to move on in the game. Now, obviously, Fire Blast is just a massive upgrade on our moveset compared to Ember, so I'm going to go now to Pryce, where this move might also be really, really good against the Dugong and against the Piloswine. So let's just see how it actually works out. So here, of course, Houndour makes its way to the last executive in the Rocket Hideout with no issues whatsoever. So let's just see how we do here. We're going to Fire Blast on the first Arbok. It doesn't get the one-hit KO, but it will be a two-hitter as we just get wrapped. We'll just bite that Pokemon down. Murkrow comes out next. I'm going to stick with Fire Blast here, getting the one-hit KO, and that brings out the Gloom. We'll go for more Fire Blast, and that was a very, very easy victory, getting us to level 29. So with that being done, I think we just go to Pryce and see if we can just beat him with our Houndour, and then we'll finally go back and try our hand at Chuck's gym, where I'm really not super confident, but maybe the Fire Blast will give us better ranges. It's also worth noting that if we burn something like Chuck's Poliwrath, it will at least deal less damage with the Dynamic Punch, which is a strategy. I was actually talking to RBY Pokemon Challenges about a run that he was doing over there with a fire type, and he was actually trying to burn Lance's Gyarados as a strategy for getting through Lance, because Gen 1 hates fire types. Gen 2, more forgiving to fire types, but with the dark type weakness to fighting, that might actually be a strategy there against Chucky Boy. We'll just have to see. But for now, we've made it to Pryce. Let's see if we can get the victory. And has anybody ever noticed that Pryce kind of has like a little sad face going on here? I think it's clearly because of the fact that he knows that he's trash and that everybody's coming to beat him. So let's just see how easily we actually get through. First up on the Seal, I think we just stick with Bite strats, going for flinches here. We get a Headbutt, but that's not a big deal. Out next comes the Dugong, and here I'm going to try Fire Blast just to see what it does. It does slightly less than half, so I'll Bite after that and then go back to Fire Blast to knock that Pokemon out. That brings out the Piloswine. We will go for Fire Blast and get the one-hit KO. So just like that, we beat Pryce on the first attempt with no difficulties, and we get a badge boost in special attack. So we're going to be slightly stronger here. Maybe that's enough to get us through Chucky Boy's gym. Let's go find out if we can get through the first Hitmonlee. Of course, the nightmare scenario would be if our Pokemon gets one-shot by things like Double Kick and Jump Kick, and we do not one-shot with the Fire Blast. If we don't one-shot with Fire Blast, then we could be in really, really bad shape. We're just gonna have to see here. Let's see if Houndour can actually get through this gym. So Black Belt Bros attempt number one. First off, on the Hitmonlee, we go for the Fire Blast. It is not a one-hitter, and we get destroyed by a single Jump Kick. That's kind of what I was scared of. We're going to need a critical hit here to get through. I'm pretty sure that's the only way. Otherwise, we can try Headbutt to try to get a flinch and then go into the Fire Blast. Instead, we get a miss from the Jump Kick. That will allow us to finally get through there on full health. And then I accidentally evolved. Rip. Let's try this one again. Still, I don't think we even need this Pokemon to crash. Just a flinch is more than enough, and that's way more likely than a crit. So we will take it, and we get through this time. Now we can go to the Hitmonchan. Let's do just the Fire Blast strat. I misclicked and used Bite instead, getting a flinch, but that's perfectly fine. We can just bite it down after the Fire Blast, and just like that, we get through the Black Belt Bros. So turns out they are not a problem because we are faster there, but now we have to see if we can get through the rest of these traders and make our way to Chucky Boy. And fortunately, Fire Blast basically one-shots everything after that, so you just need accuracy luck. But now we have to heal up and try to take on Chuck himself. I'm not sure how this is going to go. I'm pretty sure Dynamic Punch will just one-shot us. So I'm not sure if there's really any item that we can have here that helps us. Maybe like a Pink Bow in order to deal more damage with the Headbutt. I'm not sure. I'm just going to test this out and see. So first attempt against Chucky Boy, he leads off with the Primeape, of course. Let's go for the Fire Blast. We miss, we get leered, but after that we can see that Fire Blast is a one-hit KO. Now we've made it to the Poliwrath. I'm going to Headbutt. That did not that much damage, only 21 damage there. Let's see what Fire Blast does. It does significantly more than that. We get another Dynamic Punch miss here. We can keep Fire Blasting, and it looks like that's going to be a 4-hit KO. We get knocked out by the Dynamic Punch at that point, but maybe we just need to lower some accuracy here. Now, it turns out that Fire Blast is not a guaranteed one-hit KO on the Primeape, though. It survives with 2 HP, so that's kind of sus. We might not actually be able to get this to go. Still, I'm going to stick with the Fire Blast strat on the Poliwrath on the basis that I'm hoping to get an attack drop from a burn. That might be our only real way through here. Of course, if we get leered by the first Primeape, we probably can't get through, but Chuck will use a full heal, and it may be possible to reapply the attack drop after that with a second burn. We're just going to have to reset for a lot of luck, though. So let's try for some Mud Slap strats as well in order to try to get the Dynamic Punch to miss. Then we'll go into the Fire Blast. So we're going to get Poliwrath to low health, and this time he misses, so we can simply bite him down from there and get the victory. It's not pretty to get through Chucky Boy, but it is possible thanks to the Fire Blast strats. And with that, our Houndour has progressed on minimum battles through this section. I think there were a couple ways that could have gone down, but really using the accuracy strats to prevent that Dynamic Punch from even hitting is probably the best way to go. With that, we do manage to progress with this unevolved form. We're going to have to see how it goes against Claire, though, because that might be a nightmare for this Pokemon. We're just going to have to see, but for now, we move on. So let's go back and check on our results so far. But again, of course, we'll see that Houndour ends up in that OPTMs category because of the fact that it was using Fire Blast there. And at least coming into this section, that's still probably a little out of reach in terms of being able to afford the TM without having to actually play the casino games. By the next section, it won't count against it, but I'm not sure that Fire Blast is actually going to help against Claire. It might just not get enough damage to actually make a difference there against those Dragonairs, and the Kingdra especially just won't be susceptible to that move. So we're really going to have to see if that Pokemon can move on or not. But for now, it is still in the running, and we've got 2 more challengers today, plus 1 member pick. Let's get to our Donphan so that we can also check in on Phanpy and see how it goes in this section. So here, Donphan comes in with Mud Slap, Flail, Defense Curl, and Horn Attack. We will learn Rollout at level 33. Of course, that's also a TM move. So we could go Defense Curl Rollout strats in some parts, but this is also another one of these ground type Pokemon that does not learn the move Dig, which is kind of frustrating. We're not going to get to Earthquake until level 49. We'll probably end up learning it via TM before that, if I have to guess. And we just don't get a whole lot of other decent moves. At least Stab Mudslap is stronger than in the hands of other Pokemon, but I'm not sure it's going to be enough to get us through this section. We'll just have to see. For now, I'm going to make my way first to the Rocket Hideout. Let's just see if we can manage to get through that section. And then if we can, we will make our way back down to Chuck after that. So here, Donphan makes quick work of the Rocket Hideout, so we can get to the final executive here. We're going to go for the Horn Attack against this Arbok. It's going to be a pretty easy 2-hit KO. Out next comes the Gloom. I'm going to stick with the Horn Attack for now. If our health gets low enough, we'll switch to Flail, but for now it's perfectly fine. We get a 2-hit KO there. And now on Murkrow, it's a pretty easy 2-hitter as well, so we get through just fine, and we're ready to move on in the game. Now, because we're a ground type, I don't think we're going to do very well against Pryce, so I'm going to skip him from now. I'm going to make my way down to Chuck's gym first, and let's just see if we can make any progress there. And we may actually end up taking on Jasmine before Chuck, and then going to Chuck, and then going back to Pryce, just because of the fact that we don't have great special defense, and we are weak to water and ice type moves. So it's not like we're going to be super excited about Chuck or Pryce here, but let's just see how this actually goes. So in Chuck's gym, of course, we will take on the Black Belt Bros because they're just using fairly weak attacks or physical attacks, and we've got really good defense. So let's just go Horn Attack right here. It's going to be a 2-hit KO on the Hitmonlee. We're still above half health as we get to the Hitmonchan, and I think Horn Attack's going to take this one down nice and easy too. Sure enough, it looks to be a 2-hit KO, but then we get burned, and then the Ice Punch. Still, even with the best luck possible, that Hitmonchan just doesn't manage to take us down, so we can move on in the gym, and let's just see if we can at least make it to Chuck here without any issues. Sure enough, everything else in the gym goes down nice and easy, so I'll at least try one shot against Chuck here just to see what it looks like. Especially, I want to see if he just like surfs and easily destroys me, or am I able to survive maybe 1 or 2 hits here? Let's find out. So first things first, we've got the Primeape, which is faster than us. So I'm going to go for a Horn Attack here. It's going to be a 2-hit KO, but we managed to knock that one out just fine and get to level 32. We will be faster here than this Poliwrath. So let's go for the Horn Attack, which did 29 damage, just short of 30 damage. But that means that this is going to be a 4-hit KO with the Horn Attack. We get the Mind Reader into Hypnosis and then Surf. And Surf does pretty good damage, but it's not like it's 1-hit KOing us. We're getting knocked out on that attempt, but we may still be able to get through this. So this time we're back to the Poliwrath. We just got a Leer from the first Primeape, and I should have put on that Mint Berry, so that was just a mistake on my part. Let me try this one again. So back here with a Mint Berry on. This time if Poliwrath does go for the Hypnosis, we'll at least be able to wake up one time. Surf does massive damage, but maybe now Flail is even stronger. Sure enough, we get the victory there against Chucky Boy without even using the Mint Berry. The first time that I actually put it on, of course, I don't actually need it. But with that being done, I think it's time to go try our hand at Jasmine, just because I think she's going to be easier than going to Pryce. But let's see if that's actually the case, or does she turn out to be an absolute nightmare? So Jasmine attempt number 1 right here. She leads off with the Magnemite. I'm going to go Mud Slap here, and that gets the 1-hit KO on that Pokemon. Magnemite number 2 comes out and also gets wrecked. So now we've got the Steelix in front of us. We've got 8 Mud Slaps remaining. I'm going to set up the Mud Slaps first here, hoping to just take this Pokemon's accuracy down as low as possible. We got a defense drop, which is pretty bad. So one more of those Iron Tails will be enough to knock me out. Still, once we get all of its accuracy down, I'm going to just set up tons and tons of defense buffs here because we're going to run out of Mud Slaps. Once we get up to +6 defense, I'll just use up the remaining 2 Mud Slaps that I have here, and then I guess just start flailing. And if it does manage to damage me, I'll just get this move to be even stronger. But now it's run out of Iron Tails and it goes for Rock Throw, which does 1 damage. So we're going to be able to simply whittle this Pokemon down due to the fact that we got crazy good luck there. And with that done, we can actually learn the move Rollout. I reckon I'll learn it over Horn Attack. We could always replace Flail with something else later, but Rollout might be the solution for Pryce. So I'm just going to learn that move and let's see how this actually goes in this next battle. So Pryce attempt number 1 right here against the Seal. I'm going to set up the defense curl first. It goes Icy Wind. That's fine. But now we'll go into the rollout. It's going to be a 2-hit KO on this Pokemon. Unfortunately, we get a miss. So that resets our rollout there, but we still one-shot against the Dugong. The Piloswine comes out and it also gets 1-hit KO'd. So we get to level 34 after just completely destroying Pryce. And if we hadn't gotten that miss, we would have just completely destroyed them by having one more turn of setup there. So that's really not too bad. And Donphan actually turns out to not be terrible in this section. It's a little tedious at times, but really outside of Chuck, we never had any major problems in this section. But now we've got to check on our member pick, which is Phanpy, and see if it can manage to get through this section. So that brings us to Phanpy, who has been named Kismet by channel member BChill817. And we are coming in with the Ancient Power, Body Slam, Defense Curl, and Rollout. So a pretty nice set, but I'm worried about our low stats. So we're going to go ahead and take on the Rocket Hideout first here. Then we will go through kind of the same route that I did previously. And we're just going to have to see if this is enough for Jasmine in particular. I'm just not sure how that one's going to go, but let's find out if this can work or not. Of course, Ancient Power could give us some Omni Boost, which would be one way to progress. So we'll just at least keep that in mind that we might need to reset for like an Omni Boost in a really tough battle. So overall, it wasn't too hard to get here with BChill817's Kismet. We get to the final battle against the Rocket Executive, where I'm just going to set up Defense Curl and then go into Rollout. I think this is the best strategy because if we just build the move up enough, we should be able to sweep through the team. Gloom comes out second and just gets one shot because we've already built up a little bit. We get to level 30 as the Murkrow comes out. It goes Peck and then we get a miss, but we'll just switch into Ancient Power, which is still going to be a 2-hit KO there. Still, we managed to get the victory on the first attempt and we're ready to move on. And we might actually just be able to go straight to Pryce in this one because we've already got the rollout on. Let's see how that actually works out though. So Pryce attempt number 1 right here. Let's lead off with the Defense Curl. And then after we get that set up, we'll go for the rollout. We actually get the speed drop plus an attack drop, which is pretty bad here for us. The Seal then goes to sleep, but we do knock it out. That brings out Dugong, however, and it just destroys me with an Aurora Beam because I didn't have enough HP. Let's try this again. We might need a run where we get no speed drop. This time we managed to dodge the speed drop, but we're just missing too much with rollout. We do get the 2-hit KO there, but it's not enough against the Dugongs, which is already faster than us. This time we do manage to survive against Aurora Beam though, and we one-shot the Dugong. That brings out the Piloswine. We hit and we do manage to get the victory. So we get to level 31 after defeating Pryce there. That also gives us a badge boost in special attack. That's not super relevant here, but it does mean that we can now move on in the game. And we're going to have to go see if we can get through Jasmine, if we can get through the randos inside of Chuck's gym. It might not be as consistent as what we were seeing previously with Donphan, but it still could be possible here. So here I'll at least try the Black Belt Bros. Let's just see how they go here. On the first of the Black Belt Bros with the Hitmonlee, I'm going to go for Body Slam, which does half and gets the paralysis, so we just knock it out the next turn. That brings out the Hitmonchan, which we'll just stick with the Body Slam strat on. We are slower and we get Ice Punched, but then it goes Comet Punch, and if we can just get paralysis, we will actually win there, I think. Let's just try this one again. So next attempt, we're back to the Hitmonchan, and we do get paralysis this time, so we get the victory nice and easy on that one. So Body Slam with the chance to paralyze is actually really useful for this Pokemon. Now, however, we're going to have to get through the rest of these randos. Let's see how it goes, and can we get to the gym leader and actually try to take him on. And sure enough, we do make it to Chuck. Currently, we would be slower than both of his Pokemon, but I just want to test this out and see how it actually goes with our Phanpy here. So first up, we've got the Primeape. I'm going to go for the Body Slam here after it leers. We were really hoping to get paralysis. We didn't get it, but we do get the 2-hit KO range there. We don't quite level up against the Poliwrath though. It does massive damage with a Surf and it just knocks me out the next turn. Let's try this one again. And after a couple more attempts, it's pretty clear that we're probably not getting through this one. So instead, let's change up our strategy. Let's go try our hand at Jasmine just to see if there's any way through here. And if not, then we may really have to rethink what we're doing. So Jasmine attempt number 1 right here. I'm going to come in with Defense Curl first and then start using Rollout, hoping to build it up. We get a miss, unfortunately, and now we're getting Sonic Boomed a bunch of times, which is probably not ideal. Still, we managed to get through that first Magnemite. We knock out the second Magnemite. That brings out the Steelix, where the fully built up Rollout did 31 damage. So this would still be a 4-hit KO from this range, and we get knocked out by a critical hit. Still, let's try this one again and just see if we can get a slightly better range here. So this time we get back to Steelix again. We can set up even more defense curls here, and we can also try to paralyze this Pokemon, but it's just not looking very good to actually get through. Now, the one strategy that I do think we can go for is Mud Slap. Keep in mind that this Pokemon, as a member pick, started without that move. It was actually running the Ancient Power, Body Slam, Defense Curl, and it was running with Water Gun initially. So Mud Slap was never part of this channel member pick Phampi's moveset, which means we can actually learn the move now. We just have to decide what move to forget. And the fact is that we will relearn Rollout in one level, but we could also forget Ancient Power because we probably just prefer to use Rollout in most situations, especially with the Defense Curl strat. I think it's just stronger than Ancient Power overall. So I'm going to replace Ancient Power with Mud Slap here. Might be a mistake, but let's just test this out and see. So here against Jasmine, now with the Mud Slap on, we can even just Mud Slap here against the Magnemite. It's going to be a pretty easy 2-hit KO. Steelix comes out after that, and I'm going to try to set up a bunch of Mud Slaps first here, and then go into the defensive setup. It does look like this Pokemon is 2-hit KOing me with the Iron Tail, but we should be able to get a bunch of extra defense here. So I'm just going to set up all of my defense buffs, getting to +6. Of course, it has to get a critical hit then to knock me out, but I do think this is going to enable us to get through. I find it very interesting that when we add on Mud Slap, now she seems to put out the Steelix second. Maybe it's because of the fact that she was worried about taking too much damage from the built-up Rollout. I'm honestly not sure how the AI thinks about this stuff, because in this one, we actually get the Magnemite out second. So there we get to level 33 before the Steelix comes out. We're still going for the accuracy strats here. We're getting on very low health. We might actually want to put on a Goldberry for this one, and that might be the actual strategy. So here with the Goldberry on, we'll just stick with the Mud Slap on the first Magnemite, no matter what it does. Second Magnemite comes out, I guess we'll just stick with the same here as well. We get a nice Sonic Boom miss, at least there. That brings out the Steelix, but now with the Goldberry on, we should be able to heal up if we get a hit. So I'm going to set up 2 Mud Slaps, then start going for my defensive buffs, just to get as much defense as possible. And hopefully that means that the Goldberry will help us survive multiple turns here. She goes Screech, but I'll just simply set up the defense buffs again here, only to get a critical hit that knocks me out yet again. She's not going to get a ton of critical hits there, so that is pretty lucky from the Steelix to just keep getting crits on me. But I think this is the best play, is just go for a couple of those accuracy drops, then start going for the defense buffs, then eventually go for the paralysis here. Here we'll Body Slam, trying to paralyze this Pokemon. We do. Now we'll just finish up with the Mud Slaps to get its accuracy down. And now I think we can go for Rollout here, because while it's not going to do a ton of damage, it will gradually build up. And once it's fully built up, it should do at least something. And I'm just doing this more because I want to keep the last couple of Mud Slaps for the final Magnemite, since we might be on fairly low health, and I want to make sure that we actually have at least some way of getting through there. Once it uses up all the Iron Tails and it has to go for the Rock Throw, we're really feeling pretty good about this because Rock Throw is not going to do a ton to a ground type Pokemon. So we do manage to get through Steelix this time. That brings out the Magnemite and the rollout's fully built up, so it just gets completely destroyed. And just like that, we do manage to get our Phanpy through Jasmine. It requires putting on the Mud Slap there, but for now we have managed to progress to this point. Let's see how we do now against Chucky Boy when we can maybe even go for some accuracy strats. So first things first, on the Primeape, I'm going to go Body Slam again. This is going to be a 2-hit KO. It gets paralyzed. Very nice. That brings out the Poliwrath, where I'm going to stick with the Body Slam, getting the paralysis. We're going to go for some accuracy strats here. He goes Mind Reader, then he's fully paralyzed. Now he finally lands Hypnosis on me, which is bad, and I didn't have a Mint Berry on. I'm still rocking the Gold Berry. Surf, of course, will just two-shot me, so there's no point in that. Let's try this one again with a Mint Berry on, because with a Mint Berry, we would have won that last attempt. So back for round 2, let's go for the Body Slam here and take down that Primeape. Now we Body Slam, once again paralyzing the Poliwrath. We get a recover from the Hypnosis with that Mint Berry. And now we're going to Mud Slap here to reduce the accuracy of its moves. We get put to sleep. We're getting a bunch of Surf misses, which is nice, but we've got to wake up, and a critical hit simply ends it. So this fight's definitely looking pretty tough at this point, but I think it is possible. It's just going to be a matter of we've got to get the paralysis. We've got to get Poliwrath to be fully paralyzed. Then we've got to set up a bunch of accuracy drops there, and maybe, just maybe, we can find a way through. This time we get the Poliwrath all the way down, and it just has to crit me. Come on. This time we get the critical hit with the paralysis and the Hypnosis miss after the Mind Reader, and that is enough to actually allow us to get through there, but it took multiple attempts there on Chuck. He is not an easy fight for this Phanpy, but it is possible at least to get through. So BChill817, you are moving on with your member pick Phanpy Kismet, and we are going to be going and trying our hand at Claire. It's probably not going to be pretty, but who knows? Maybe we can somehow set up enough with the rollout strat that we can actually manage to get through there. We'll just have to see. But with that, BChill817, I'd like to thank you for 11 months as a channel member, supporting the channel and supporting this Phanpy. We couldn't do it without people like you. So thank you so much. Let's run it up. You're about to hit that 1-year anniversary as a channel member, which is just incredible. Thank you so much. But now with Phanpy done, we're going to have to move a few things around. Remoraid's going to have to get moved into that completed member picks column. Not sure why it didn't get there. And of course, we're going to have to move Porygon 2 up into the actual pass column. But with all of that done, we have only one last Pokemon for today. It is time for our Stantler. Let's see how this Pokemon goes in this section. And here our Stantler is coming in with Hypnosis, Leer, Mud Slap, and Headbutt. Our next level up move is just Sand Attack, which isn't really going to be useful because we've already got the Mud Slap. And then we don't get a ton of useful TM moves in this section of the game. Still, we should at least test this out and see how it's actually going to go. Maybe we can find a way through in spite of the fact that we're a normal type with the Headbutt strats, or maybe we have to go Return. I'm honestly not sure, but the clear play is to go to Pryce first in this one, so I'm just going to go ahead and go that route. Now, of course, what this Pokemon really has going for it is the fact that we can use Hypnosis strats. Nightmare is available if we need a way to get through a really tough fight, but we'll just see if that's required or not. And of course, Stantler with its Stab Headbutt does pretty well here in the Rocket Hideout. Against Jed, we did have to go for the Mud Slaps, and they weren't one-hit KOs, but still we got through just fine. And now against the Final Executive, we're just going to go for the Headbutt here, I think. It's going to be a 2-hit KO on the Arbok, but that's not too bad. We just get wrapped. Out next comes the Gloom, which we'll just stick with Headbutt on, also getting a 2-hit KO. And finally, Murkrow. Headbutt just doesn't get the one-hitter. We're going to need 2 hits there as well, but it's enough to get us through this section. So now with that done, it's time to just get through these electrodes, and then let's try Pryce. We have access to Hypnosis, so at the worst case, we can simply put him to sleep and whittle him down, and that may be all that we actually need. Now, it is worth noting that I did a full game solo run with Stantler maybe a couple years ago now. I forget if it was last year or the year before, but you can check that out on the channel, so you can probably see what kind of strategies I've seen previously that work with this Pokemon, but I did not go back and review that one. I'm just kind of going by my same logic here probably as I go through this section of the game. It's not like this Pokemon learns a ton of TMs at this point, so I think the strategies are pretty straightforward, but let's just see if it works out or not. So here against Pryce and his Seal, I'm actually going to put the Seal to sleep to try to avoid that icy wind. Then we can two-shot here with the Headbutt. Next is Dugong. I'm again going to put this Pokemon to sleep. I'm hoping to prevent it from using Rest here. This is going to be a 3-hit KO with the Headbutt, and sure enough, we managed to knock that one out. Piloswine comes out last. It also gets put to sleep, and now we're going for the Headbutt. We get a nice critical hit there, and that allows us to get the 2-hitter. So we get to level 29 and beat Pryce on the first attempt. He just didn't stand any chance against that set, and we're now ready to move on in this challenge. I think we go to Chuck next, just on the basis that we might be able to get through that fight, and we want to kind of see what it's going to look like here. But I think just on the basis that with the sleep strats, we may just be able to put things to sleep and then knock them out. And Stantler is reasonably fast, so we should be outspeeding everything there. That should be all that we really need. It might take like more resets to get through, but it's not going to be terrible, I don't think. I'm more worried about Jasmine because we just don't have great moves against her. We're really going to be begging for some good sleep luck in that fight. Still, let's just see how it goes against the Black Belt Bros first here, where I'm going to try to put Hitmonlee to sleep. Once we get it to sleep with the Hypnosis, we'll go into the Headbutt and we get a critical hit one-shot. So I'm not sure if it would have been a 1-hitter or a 2-hitter, but we managed to get it in that first attempt. So we move on to Hitmonchan on full health. Here, this is going to be a 2-hit KO with the Headbutt, but we do manage to get through, so no problems there. Let's just try to get through the rest of the Black Belts now. And sure enough, we make it to Chucky Boy with no issues, and we're just going to try to put his Pokemon to sleep and see if that's enough. Let's try it out. So first up on the Primeape, I think it might be best just to go for the Headbutt here. It's going to be a 2-hit KO, and we do get Karate Chop. So in hindsight, definitely I should have put it to sleep. But now we get to the Poliwrath, where I'm trying to put it to sleep. It's trying to Dynamic Punch me. We missed 3 Hypnosises in a row, and then it finally hits the Dynamic Punch. So we lose, but let's try this one again. So back here against the Primeape, let's actually put it to sleep this time. Now we can go for the Headbutt, getting the 2-hit KO. That brings us back to Poliwrath, where once again, we're trying to put it to sleep. We do finally get it to sleep. He's going to use the full heal, but that's perfectly fine. We hit it once and then we put it to sleep again. And this is just a 3-hit KO. So we beat Chuck in the second attempt. It really isn't that bad. You just got to land in the sleep there and you're good to go in that one. But now the question is, Jasmine, how do we do when we don't have any super strong moves? We could go for the Nightmare strat, but I'm going to try to go in with my moveset as is right now. Let's see if maybe, just maybe, by putting all of the Pokemon to sleep, setting up some Leers, and then using the Mud Slaps and Headbutts, we can find a way to get through this one. So Jasmine attempt number 1, I decided to put on the Goldberry here since I'm going for the sleep strats. This time we get a miss, and I also realized that I didn't recover PP. So let's try this one again after properly healing, just to see, because obviously we want to be able to put the first Magnemite to sleep and then use the Mud Slaps there, but we've got to have all the PP in our moves so that we actually have a chance. This time we do get Magnemite to sleep. We go for the Mud Slap. We get a critical hit one-shot, getting us to level 31. We will skip Sand Attack. I don't think we need that move. Now we get to sleep on the second Magnemite, so we'll go once again to the Mud Slap. This is going to be a 2-hit KO, so clearly the crit mattered on the first Pokemon, but now we've made it to Steelix. I'm going to put this one to sleep and now start leering at the Pokemon. I don't know how you see that you're being leered at when you're asleep, but hey, whatever works. We're just using this setup to hopefully be able to get through this Pokemon a little bit easier by lowering its defenses. Once its defense is all the way down, now we will go into the Mud Slaps. We can see one Mud Slap did really good damage there, 25 damage. So this will be a 5-hit KO with this move, but if we can also get the accuracy drops and keep this Pokemon asleep, we may have a chance here. She uses the Hyper Potion, but then we get a critical hit after that, and Steelix is asleep, so if it doesn't wake up, it's simply going to get wrecked. Sure enough, it does. We beat Jasmine on the first attempt. So with that, we managed to get Stantler through this section. It didn't really look that bad thanks to the sleep strats. And with that, it's another episode wrapped up. So let's check on our final results and see how we're going to do the next episode. So with that episode done, we are now up to 99 Pokemon successfully getting through the Jasmine section. We're definitely getting over 100 by the end of the next episode. And that actually is way better than what I would have predicted at the start of this entire challenge. I thought that by Jasmine, we would just be dropping off Pokemon like crazy, but we've just found so many strategies that actually work to get Pokemon through this section of the game. I think the real difficulty ramp is going to happen when we get to the League. I would actually be surprised if a lot of Pokemon fell off on Claire and Rival 5, just because I think most Pokemon that have gotten to this point have enough tools to actually get through those fights. Still, there are some that will definitely struggle there, and who knows, we may start dropping off Pokemon in the next section, but up to this point through the middle game of Johto, there are just way too many strong TM moves that allow Pokemon to get to this point in the game. And with that, we're going to get ready to wrap up this section in the next episode. It's going to be a big episode. I'm going to have 16 Pokemon. We are coming in with Aerodactyl, Snorlax, the 3 legendary birds of Kanto. We've got the Dragonair and Dragonite, Mewtwo, Mew, the 3 legendary beasts of Johto, Tyranitar, Lugia, Ho-Oh, and Celebi. We'll also be getting in our member picks that are Amistar, Kabutops, and Dratini. Now, I'm not going to be doing any redos of the Pokemon in the fail column. At least that's not my plan, because I feel like the results kind of spoke for themselves with those ones. But go ahead and tell me in the comments if you think I should re-look at one of those Pokemon. Most people that commented before talked about Doduo, but I think I've explained my logic in previous episodes why I felt like the luck just was too much to justify that Pokemon getting through. So I think we're gonna leave those 4 fails as fails without going back and doing any redos. But this is going to be a massive episode, 19 total Pokemon, and I think we're going to see a plethora of strategies. I would be surprised if any of these Pokemon failed, because they have so many strong moves and TMs available to them, as well as having some of the best stats in the game. So it's probably just a victory lap, a formality if you will, but we have to test it to find out for sure. So that's how we're going to kick off the new year. So come join me for that, and then we're going to be on to the Claire section, which could be pretty interesting. We'll just have to see how it goes. Anyway, I just want to say a massive thank you to all of you for everything in 2025. Let's keep this going in 2026. And especially when I get to being full-time in April, I have very high confidence we're going to finish this entire series in 2026. So stay tuned, because there's going to be a ton of episodes coming out, and I'm super excited to get through them and find out once and for all every single Pokemon that can actually beat the game of Pokemon Crystal on minimum battles. So let's keep running it up, and I will see you guys in the next one later.